we go. All right. Hey, look at that. We're live on the interwebs.
Oh, yes.
Greetings, interwebians.
People can see us?
Well, they can now.
Person can see us?
Yeah.
Well, eventually they can see us.
Come this
Even
way.
if they're not on.
Right.
Now they can see us.
Right. It's amazing how many... Oh, by the way, welcome to You Got Me Monologuing, the podcast where everything is made up and the points don't matter. I'm your host,
Yes.
Tony.
I'm Pasquale.
I'm Joey.
And I'm Grognard Todd.
I had a riff. I
I love that show.
I think we should steal...
Hey, hold on. The points don't matter?
Yes. It's from Whose Line?
Good job. You just got 5 points for that. I think we should steal a tagline from a different show for every episode.
Absolutely.
That's actually not a bad
down
idea.
for that. I'm so down for that.
I actually, I'm gonna. When he doesn't get a reference, I'm deducting like 500.
Right, exactly. Minus 500
Right.
every time he doesn't get a reference.
You've watched Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes.
That's what that's for.
I was just saying, wait, we were keeping track of points?
Oh, yeah.
No, wait, no.
They're officially
wait,
correct proofs.
Wait, the points don't matter? Then why was I trying to build so many?
See?
See, that's exactly the point. I think under Aisha Tyler, they've kind of minimized the whole 5 million points. You know,
They got rid of that a little bit. But,
Right.
But it was hysterical when.
That's a shame.
And I love Aisha. I mean, Aisha.
I do too.
I think Aisha Tyler is a freaking genius.
She's
so
incredible.
smart
She
and
is
so funny
unbelievably
and so
smart.
beautiful.
Yep.
And I just discovered.
She's on my list.
Well, she's pretty close to mine. If she's not on it. But I just discovered because my youngest daughter went on a Criminal Minds kick and watched.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Had watched every single season of Criminal Minds. So
I love the Mandy Patinkin season.
She started when she was 14 and ended when she was 15. That's how long it took because there was 15 seasons or something
Right.
crazy
yeah,
like that. And
like
it
20-something episodes each.
And it's like a real TV show, right?
Right.
Back in the day, and it skipped or it went to a different network or something, right? But she was able to watch the first 13 or 14 on Netflix, and then had to go to or vice versa, Amazon Prime or whatever to watch the other to Hulu or something to watch.
Joe Mantegna.
But I watched the first 2 seasons. My wife and I watched the first 2 seasons. But anyway, I I started watching it with her again because I hadn't seen it in years and years. I mean, they're all the same. Every single episode is exactly the same.
Yeah.
They're all horribly derivative. They're all really, really kind of bad TV after the first couple seasons. But they're fun to watch, and especially I got to sit with my daughter.
It's
and
like
watch
Law and Order.
And when the first
Few seasons alone.
when Aisha Tyler first showed up to interview for a job at it's the FBI, but whatever they call that. Criminal
The behavioral unit?
whatever they call
Behavioral
behavioral,
sciences
whatever they
unit.
call it. Yeah, she showed up. I'm like, oh, that's Aisha Tyler, and Olivia said, who? And I said, that actress is Aisha Tyler. She's famous. She's been in lots of stuff. She's a comedian.
Yeah.
So she's really funny. She's got a great podcast too. I don't know if she still has it, but her podcast is
How
great.
dare you?
So then I was riveted. I had to watch every single episode after that because I knew she was
COVID.
she was in most of them.
Bastard.
No, it
Anyway,
just
that was a
cold
long way to
last
say
week.
I like Aisha Tyler.
Well, and she does the voice on Archer.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, cool.
I loved her when she would pop up on At Midnight. Did you ever watch that show?
Yes.
That show introduced me to so many great new comedians.
Yeah.
I loved that show. I was heartbroken.
Isn't that how you found out about Flula Borg?
Yes. Oh God, Flula
Flula.
Borg.
Crazy maniac.
He is
Fucking
insane.
greatest name
Javelin,
ever.
man.
And Aisha Tyler was on Friends. She might have been.
Yes.
I don't know if she got her start there.
I don't.
I think she was a comedian before that. I don't know her
Right.
history, to be honest with you. But was she the first African American on Friends?
No,
Or the
because
first
they
minority?
because they had. She's the first one to have a recurring role.
Okay.
But there was an episode where Joey and Ross were
Not
both
this
competing.
Joey.
Not
Yeah.
that Joey. Or forget
I
about
mean,
it. How you doing,
you
Joey?
doing?
I wouldn't even be a fetus at that point.
He was competing with Ross over Gabrielle Union was on that show.
Oh yeah.
And they were both. It resulted in one of my favorite scenes. Do you ever have problems opening milk? Wait a minute, how many times have you been married? Now, your first, did it fail because she didn't love you anymore or because you made her a lesbian? And it was one of these things where they kept going back.
Riffing back and forth.
When do you think we lost her? I think it was the gonorrhea.
That's one of my favorite
Apparently I
moments.
missed out on this part of Friends.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if that was one of the later seasons or not. I have no
It
idea.
was. Yeah. Aisha Tyler showed up in season 7 or 8,
Actually,
around there.
I think it was 9 because Wasn't
might
she
have.
that paleontologist character?
Yes.
I love that the kids know the actual
Oh,
season and episodes. Like, you talk to old farts like us, we're like, yeah, I don't know, like 6, 7, 8, something like that. And the
No.
kids always know, right? Whether it's Simpsons or Friends or whatever. You would be Star Wars and
Right.
Star Trek and stuff like
Well,
that.
not really
Not
Star Trek.
Trek.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm always impressed.
We
It's
failed
always
this
the kids are always good at that. I'm always impressed by the kids and their crazy memories. Like, I
Actually,
can't remember any of that.
She showed up season 9, episode 14.
Well, that's a different
I didn't
thing.
give a specific
Yeah, he did.
episode.
In a deleted
number.
scene.
Jesus.
He did it right. He didn't actually us.
Yes,
he gave
you
us
did
the,
not
he gave us
actually
the
us.
correct answer.
But no, and the thing is, I used to have that memory. Once upon a time, I was the one who,
On the laser disc,
Right.
if you
Chapter
jog,
2.
yeah, exactly, I could jog to the exact moment where Princess Leia's nipple almost slips out of the bikini. You know,
well, one bikini.
What?
It was just duct tape.
There's a reason it's an almost
Yeah.
because it wasn't. So
Yeah.
yeah.
but when
It
I
was
was
probably her elbow, to be
In,
honest.
in
When I was
Tony's
14
teenage horny mind, it was an almost. In nobody else's was it an almost, but in Tony's it was an almost.
kidding me, Carrie Fisher, or she was
But she was beautiful. Oh, absolutely.
damn.
Yeah.
That was my first.
I mean,
Yeah.
I still think she was still hot when Harry met Sally.
Oh God, yes.
Oh, sure she was. Yeah.
In fact, one of my, Carrie Fisher, one of my favorite things. We went to Celebration 2, me and Brett, and we're standing in line waiting for Carrie Fisher's autograph, and they said, "Well, we're closing down the line. She's going to step away for a little bit to go do her panel." And we looked at each other. It's like we could sit here for the next hour through the panel and wait, and then another hour after that. Or we could go sit down and listen to her and watch her on stage.
Yeah.
I've got some fantastic pictures because we jumped out of that line and I ran up to the front with my DSLR that I borrowed from my dad to take pictures that I had to then go develop.
Yep.
Actually, it wasn't a DSLR.
It wasn't
just an
just
out-
like a decent.
Yeah, it was.
There used to be
an
this thing
SLR.
called film, Joey.
Yes, I know.
Oh,
Many
okay.
movies were shot on it.
Oh, God.
In fact, when your mother and I met, she was working her full-time job was in the photo department at Walgreens corporate.
Nice.
Makes
So-
me wonder what kind of photos you and your.
No, you didn't want to take racy photos and then have them developed because there was
That's
these
what I
things
mean.
called photo huts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then it would just be one greasy guy who was stoned most of the time, all by himself, in about a 5x5
All I
building in the
picture-
middle of a parking lot somewhere, and you would pull up and give him
God.
$5, and he would hand you back
the photo
developed
ones.
pictures,
Yeah.
and you'd get about a third back of what you actually gave him.
Or he
You're
would
like,
just
oh,
make
that's pretty good.
duplicates.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
If you wanted a picture of the Empire State Building, if you went on vacation, took a picture of the Empire State Building or the Statue of Liberty, you needed to take about 35 of them to get 5 or 6 good ones.
Oh, yeah,
because
absolutely.
you would only get about a third of them back.
But I always think of
That's the photo hut.
1 hour photo with Robin
Yeah.
Williams.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that
That's
movie.
the guy.
Creepy. So, how was everybody's week? I know
Halloween.
Pasquale.
Halloween.
Yeah.
One more day, it's Halloween. Oh no, we did that already.
We did talk
Pumpkin
about
It was already-
scream in the dead of night.
It was already
This
Halloween.
is Halloween.
My daughter watched that for Halloween.
And I still need to rewatch that.
It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I showed it to him when he was really young, and he didn't dig on it. But now he's older. I think he would get down.
Yeah,
to
the Oogie Boogie character freaked me out as a kid because,
that. everything.
He's
freaked
supposed
out.
to.
yeah, like big sack dude full of bugs. Just, ugh.
So, what you been up to, Squally? You've abandoned us for
Yeah,
a
we haven't
couple
seen
of
you for a
weeks.
while.
I
now.
have not abandoned you. So
Where have you been?
How dare you try to
Oh.
make money and
I don't know about
support
that.
your family? How dare
Participate
you?
in the
So-
capitalist
How
society. of
dare
ours.
you?
Work decided to pull a couple of fast ones really quick, and on top of that, I had a cold. But one of the fast ones was this fabulous thing of, we're going to transition you guys back to work a few days a week. And I had to explain to them that that was not a great idea, because the other whammy was, hey, we're going to give you on this production-intensive account where you're basically working until 8 o'clock at night every night, but now we want you to commute downtown and waste all your hours.
Good times.
I found out from one of my coworkers that I managed to negotiate, and so I'm not having to work downtown anymore.
Well, that's good.
Nice, good job.
So, but the funny thing is, the reason I got it, despite all of my logic and even my emotional pleas, was the fact that I wear hearing aids,
Emotional,
and I
right.
made it clear to them that, sitting in a room with a whole bunch of people wearing masks, I can't read lips. I have no clue what people are saying. And I illustrated this because I went in yesterday and we did the same thing, and I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. Everybody's talking like this.
Right.
But I also found out one of my other coworkers is also working from home. But the reason she gets to do it is because she basically got a job offer from another company, and she basically went in and said, "Hey, you want to keep me? You're gonna let me work from home."
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a thing these days, right? I mean, if you
It's a
can,
negotiating tactic.
yeah, absolutely.
It absolutely
I was talking to
is.
Todd about this at the store. I'm like, I'm not a stock guy. I don't work a typical service industry where you got to be there in person.
Right.
Otherwise, I would do it. My biggest thing is, I work in front of a computer. I could do that from Hawaii.
Yep.
And still
Right.
get my job done.
Yep.
And you should be allowed to.
And I should be allowed to.
And it saves the company money.
That's the other thing. I was explaining to them all this stuff. I'm like, you basically get me for more than 8 hours a day.
Yep.
You get me for longer hours. You get more work out of it because I'm not on a train where there's no phone reception.
Yep.
Right.
I'm like,
And they don't have to pay for you to have a chair in the office.
that's the other thing. I brought up the
you would
hoteling,
think, right?
and I actually mentioned you vaguely that I'm like, hey, this guy's company, he's basically setting up hoteling.
If I need to go into the office, like
You have to reserve a spot. Blah blah blah.
right, I'm going to go in tomorrow because I need to pick up a fucking iPhone because I've got to test iPhones.
Yeah.
Sorry about the mouth.
But there is a, the other thing is like a lot of these companies, the real estate downtown is ridiculous.
Yeah.
real
Well,
estate,
yeah.
the
Fortunately for
cost.
us, we're
not.
technically Chicago, but you sneeze and you're in Park Ridge
Yeah, we're
or Rosemont.
We're in the
Right.
Okay.
we're in.
I don't know what that means.
the
Means you're
loop.
real close.
It's like you sneeze and take a step back, and you're
it's
out
not
of
Chicago proper. I mean, a lot of times when you say, I work in Chicago, they assume you work downtown,
Right,
Like
all
within a mile of the Sears, the Sears Tower.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a lot of people that work in Chicago, Chicago's a giant piece of property. So
We're in the loop. Everybody that
because
says
you-
they're in Chicago, they're in the loop.
right,
Right.
Yep.
I used to work down there. I used to work right off of you get out off the Metro,
Yeah.
and instead of going into the station, you go out and right on Canal Street, 111.
Oh yeah,
Canal.
you're in. Yeah, you got it nice.
You got it nice.
Well, I mean, granted,
Well,
I
know.
it was an expensive train
The
ticket. every
trains,
month.
the train station, the train tickets, the scheduling and stuff was all there to benefit people in the finance district.
Oh,
which
yeah.
are right around Union.
Oh yeah, completely.
Anyway, so I'm doing a little bit better now, but now I'm just trying to get all these accounts under order, so I'm not working till 8:00 at night.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I still managed to go to the store on Monday.
For me, it's been and Monday. We have a release coming out Saturday,
Yeah.
so the reason I didn't come out Monday was because I was online until about 5:30 on
Yeah.
Monday, and it was one of those things where I'm just like, I'm not going.
Well, I mean, it's
I
just it's not a big deal, but it just seems like everybody was busy. So I sent the message out to everybody in the
Yeah.
group. I'm like, hey guys, are we like? I know life gets in the way. I just wanted to gut check. Are we? It just happened to be a fluke. Is it a fluke or
Did
is
anybody
everybody
show up on Monday? Or
It was
just
three
you?
of us, but one of us was that kid that's having a really hard time.
Right.
His enthusiasm's there.
Right.
But he's not seeming to. Okay, so here's my gaming question: how do you deal with someone who's enthusiastic about a new game, shows up all the time, yet is not understanding the
Not grasping
advice,
the principles and the advice.
not grasping the advice? I don't care about the principles.
Right. So you keep trying to teach him something, and he doesn't want to listen to what you're trying to teach him.
That I don't
Yeah.
care that he doesn't understand the game because
Right.
that'll come practice.
Yeah.
But it just seems like anything that we're trying.
So usually, what happens if people just are unable or unwilling or unable?
Yeah.
I
feel bad.
because usually it's because they're doing poorly, right? So they start to do poorly. So what happens? They start to get frustrated.
Yes.
And so you try to gently bring them along and say, "Hey, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try this? Or
Mm-hmm.
how about I give you this unit to try out? Or how about I loan you my army and you can let's play a game against each other. I'll give you my army, and
Okay.
you can see that your army is the way it can be constructed
Yeah.
that works a little bit better. And you just try to help them do things like that. And ultimately, if they're just
Yeah.
completely unable or unwilling to do it, any of those things,
Yeah.
they usually just go away. Like they just
Yeah.
get so frustrated, they feel like, and they rightly or wrongly, either they feel like I'm bad at this game or this game sucks, right?
Right.
And so
I
then they
think
just
he's
kind of
actually
go
enjoying
away.
it. I
Or
think
they get better.
The problem is there's a negative play experience for the
For
other
his
player.
opponent. Right. That's the tough thing.
And so we're all trying to be patient, and everybody's been great.
I've played him. I played him several weeks in a row, and you know me. I don't give a shit if I win.
That's what I mean.
Lose.
When it's the two most friendliest, perfect people for newbies.
But are you crushing his guts out?
No, actually, and maybe I should. But I don't play lists that crush anybody's guts out. I don't play those. I go, this might be fun to try. And I go up against people who know what they're doing, and it's like, by the way, Tony, that was dumb. Why'd you bring that? That's the kind of list that I bring.
Sure. I would guess I'm a little surprised on if he's not grasping concepts, he should be losing every game. Right? Yeah. And if he's losing every game, everybody who plays any game, if they lose every game, eventually they get frustrated.
Yeah, I think we're going to try a different tack.
And often they could be, like I said, right or wrong. They may blame the game, they may blame their opponents, but if they're losing every single game, there's something they're not doing right, and you can only do so much, right? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. The whole thing, like you can only do so. You can't play the game for them.
And the thing is, because it's Star Wars,
some games are just beyond people, and some people can only handle so much.
Right.
So.
And the thing is, with the license, Star Wars always brings people out because
regardless
of
Star
Wars, right? Yeah. Regardless of the game, I've seen this in every Star Wars game I've ever played. There are people who have more enthusiasm for the franchise than the game, and because it's Star Wars, they're going to be excited. They're going to, and it doesn't matter if you mud stomp them or they're not getting it. Right. It's Star Wars. They're going to keep going. They're going to keep going. Because they're more fans of the franchise than the game.
You know what might be interesting? You said you wanted to do a trench run one day.
Yes.
So I think we could try that and see if he actually enjoys being with the group that way.
Yeah.
That might be a good way. So basically changing the format.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have to be careful because,
I don't want to scare him away. I'm not trying to.
Well, I'm more worried about him being, like you said, a negative play experience for the rest of the group, right?
Yeah.
How negative is it just, oh, geez, this guy again, he doesn't want to listen to anything I do, and I crush his guts out every time, and that's no fun for anybody, right?
Yeah.
Or is there another reason why he's being negative? Or not? I don't want to say
I'm also trying to be cognizant of people who might not have all the social cues,
which is everybody in our hobby, right? So my other point there is, if he's giving other people a negative experience, not because he's not listening or not doing well, but because they're getting a negative experience because of some of those issues, or just because some people just are not. I mean, let's be honest, not everybody meshes with everybody when it comes to playing games, and there are a lot of people who don't mesh with anybody when it comes to playing games.
Yep.
And so if somebody is really kind of being, I don't want to say a pest, but a negative experience, I mean, the real negative word is cancer, right? If somebody's being a cancer and that starts to negatively impact the community, then there is some intervention that needs to occur, and usually that needs to be by the store owner or manager.
Luckily, we haven't reached that yet.
Yeah, and we're not.
And I'm just letting you know, like, that's like the ultimate end game, right? Like, holy cow, nobody wants to come to the
you're talking about like body odor issues, yelling, like those are extreme situations.
Like extreme situations, exactly right. Yeah.
But luckily we're not there. But to answer your question, there was three of us.
He's not a real judge. Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Well, and I will say, in general, gaming communities can be very, very tolerant of those who sometimes take a while to get there.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
You know what, he's a nice guy. He's trying really hard.
Yes.
Well, there's
if
an
his intent is good and he's trying really hard, and it's like, okay, he might be a little bit of a pain to play, but we're going to get him there. And then it's sometimes you can see a community really rally and say, hey, let's all bring this guy with us. Like, he really wants to be one of us. Let's help him get there. Yeah. And then you kind of trade off playing, like, this week you're going to play Tony. Next week you're going to play Pascal. Week after that you're going to play Lysander. No, never have him play Lysander. No, I'm just teasing. No, I'm just teasing. But you know what I'm saying. So you just kind of take turns playing him, and everybody helps him a little bit, and then you kind of eventually he'll get there or he won't, right?
Exactly.
And if he doesn't, he'll probably go away.
The one thing we definitely need to do, and we're speaking about someone who know, we definitely need to put him on the 75-minute /12 turn timer.
Yes.
Because
if he's playing slow, then you need to give him incentives and understanding. Like, you gotta speed it up here, bro.
Yeah, it's not a matter of playing slow. We reached a point in the last game I played against him where it's like, all right, we've been at it for just over an hour. I've got him pretty much beat, and it's like okay. And Francois is waiting. He's like, "Are you gonna be able to do another game?" I say, "Yeah, I should have no problem." Well, another 45 minutes later, I'm turned to Francois. I'm going, "Dude, I'm sorry." I'm like,
So what was the problem in that game? Like, could you not have said to him, "Hey, bro, I'd like to play another game tonight," and it's clear that you're losing this game,
right? I could have absolutely. I chose again. I'm trying.
He was
to be
being friendly.
I was trying to be accommodating to the new player, and I
Right.
didn't want to be like, "Well, dude, I fucking stomped your ass, so I'm gonna kick."
You're more subtle than
Of course,
that. You can be nice.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm absolutely nice, but the thing
Wait,
is,
he can?
he's
Yes, he
there.
can.
He's enthusiastic, and at that point, I had him. He wasn't so out of it that he couldn't come back, and I just got to a point in playing him because every time I dropped the hint, I was trying to be polite and drop hints rather than outright saying, "All right, at this point, our time has expired, or we've run out of rounds in a tournament." I absolutely could have and probably should have said those things to him.
Yep.
That's fine. We're all learning.
But I was like, okay, I'm going to see if he picks up on the subtle, hey, and
Not so much.
and I got to a point where I'm like, all right, he's not going to give up. I'm not going to get another full game in. So I just stopped trying. I'm like, okay, sure. That's my maneuver. Oh, you killed me. Oh, darn. Look, you win. Yay. It was one of those where it's like, yeah.
And I would say now that you're more cognizant of what's going on, just be more direct, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being direct, especially with a new player. Like, last time you played, you kind of let him get away with some stuff, or let him play his best, or whatever. You didn't play your best. Like, next time, maybe bring 2 lists, Tony. Maybe bring your I'm gonna play my best list, and I'm gonna play my wacky list.
Yeah.
And when Johnny Two Pants wants to play again, like, here's my best kid. Here you go. 32 minutes later, you're picking up your ships. Like,
Yeah. It's
like
that's what can happen.
2 tie defenders later.
You know what I'm saying?
That's why he's like, yeah, I'm not. It's like 2 tie defenders loaded out. It's like, nope, you don't have a chance. I don't care what your list is. Yeah. 2 tie defenders is the nastiest thing to see across the table from you. Yep. With that said,
Anyhow.
And just to wrap that up, even if that young man is listening tonight, or even especially if he's listening tonight, because I've posted it on all the Grognard stuff. I'm like, you're welcome to come. We want you to learn.
Absolutely.
We want you to have fun.
We all want to have fun with you.
We want more gamers, right?
Yes.
We don't want fewer gamers.
No.
We want more
Exactly.
gamers. So.
None of us, and that's why no one has. If I walk in the door and I see he's set up, it's
you're
like
being overly nice, like you were being friendlier than you probably should have been. Honestly,
I want.
You're a friendly guy.
I am. I'm trying to encourage him.
Exactly right.
To keep coming back. A funny thing. You should mention that. So, one of the only positive things that comes out of Facebook for me, yes, it gives me a great play to keep in touch with my older family who aren't just Insta kids.
Cat
and whatnot.
pictures and food pictures and kid pictures and
yeah. Well, and especially now that
I don't even do that anymore.
The Cheeto dusted fuck trumpet's now out of office.
Uh-huh.
I don't have to read 90% of the bull that I had to read on Facebook anymore. I got reached out to last week, and I get
Somebody give you the reach around?
yeah. I get it. It's like
Oh wait, that doesn't mean
carry on, move along.
Gary Gnu has sent you a friend request, and I look at the picture and I'm like, spam, and I delete it, and all of a sudden, right as I hit delete request, hey Tony, this is Gary Bagger over at the Navy Commissary when we were kids. Do you remember me? I'm like, holy shit, Gary Gavin. I remember this guy and our buddy Ned. Right. And it was one of those things, we went out and we had lunch together on Sunday. And one of the dudes showed up in his Star Trek uniform. It's like, yeah, okay. And the one thing they kept saying, it's like, dude, you were such a sweet kid when you were a kid. I was sharing all your comics. I'm like, I'm still a sweet kid.
You're just a sweet old man now.
I'm a sweet old man.
With the heart of a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you still play with toys for a living.
Yeah. Exactly. They're like, so are you still into the comic books? I'm like...
Well, funny you should ask.
Well, let me show you pictures of my basement.
Here's the topic for our podcast this week.
Oh, God. Wow.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
We need to teach you the art of the segue.
The art of the segue.
Yeah. Well, anyway is not a segue.
Anyway.
So
that's what you say when you're talking to your
Did I even say that?
75-year-old aunt, and there's a pause in the conversation.
Anyway,
Auntie, we're getting ready for dinner, so I'll love you.
Shifting topics entirely.
That's better.
Right. So I said to the Monsignor, hey, that's my anus.
Apropos of nothing.
Anyways.
Uranus.
Oh my God.
What's the name of this podcast?
Yeah.
And go.
So, this week, it's a topic that I've kind of, what?
We didn't get to talk about my week.
Oh.
Well, how about your week, Joey? We didn't talk about mine either. We mostly just talked about everything but. That was kind of my point.
Corey, finally get close to the topic at hand. You want to segue,
Right.
but you're segueing
Into Joey wants
So, Joey, how was your week?
Rather nuts. Where to start? Okay.
Give us the Reader's Digest version.
So this
You don't even know what
week
that means.
This week at work was rather busy because, holiday
Halloween
season and stuff. And, honestly, I was expecting there to be less people on Halloween. And granted, there were. But we only had two cashiers on register.
Well, that's the
throughout
retail
day.
world. They predict lesser people going through, so then they'll shrink the amount of lanes. But then there's still busy lanes. There'll be 18 empty lanes and 2 busy
Doing
people.
more with less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you got a big raise because of it.
I don't even know, man. I won't find out till this Friday.
You didn't.
You won't.
But also, I had a customer's order their total rung up at $69.69. So
And
that
you
was
just
pretty
chuckled?
funny. Yes.
Did you chuckle? Have you ever rung anybody up for $6.66 yet?
I think it was
Number of the beast.
it was $66.60 something cents. So close enough. But yes.
Good job.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm waiting for $4.20.
Retail
The
humor.
thing is, he's not the metalhead for the 666. He's not the sleazy sex guy for the 69.
And he's not even a pothead.
And he's not a
Not
pothead. It's just it's like
Boy,
random internet numbers pop up and he giggles because it's the
we need
internet.
to find you a vice. That's what we need to find
Right?
you, Brom. You need something to do.
I mean,
son.
are you gonna laugh when someone's total is $123.45?
Honestly, I would kind of find that enjoyable a bit.
What about when their order rings up as $314.15?
Oh gosh, we're going pie. That's pie.
Okay, that would actually be pretty clever. Honestly, I'm waiting for the day someone's order rings up as exactly $100. That will be the day I try for the lottery.
It'll help. It'll happen.
It will.
It happened once, and then it got
there you
ruined
go.
by coupons.
Oh, let's see.
So Todd, how was your week?
It was fine. It was Halloween.
Yeah.
We had a chili cook-off.
Ooh.
We drank too much on a Sunday and felt bad on Monday.
Quick question:
That's
Sounds
pretty much
about
all we
right.
needed. That's
How
pretty
did you
much all I
guys
needed
do
to
on
know.
trick or treaters?
Very few. Like we were shockingly few.
Yeah.
We
Like
did,
less than half than we normally would have gotten.
Right. The funny thing is, this year, Heather's like, I'm just putting the bowl on the table in the driveway and let them take it. And we still
And letting
came
the
back-
first kid show up to get all the candy.
You know what? That's what I said. I'm like, she goes, no, the kids are better than I'm like,
No, they're not.
I'm like, it takes one teenager.
Well, the kids are fine. The teenagers are the ones.
We ended up with
Yeah.
half a basket. Half the candy was still left.
I had a metric fuck ton. Like, we had to actually turn off the lights to say, go away, we're done. We bought 2 Costco-sized bags.
Yeah.
And we actually did the Ziploc bags, the sandwich bags.
Sure.
We actually put 5 pieces of candy in each. That was our mistake, because we were trying to be COVID conscious.
Right.
And we thought, kids in the neighborhood are the ones that's showing up. They did. And there were some teenagers and some friends came over. And so...
No, we had a decent amount, but and none of them. If some of them took a fistful, that's fine. But none of them
Nobody dumped
dumped
it.
the bowl, and I was surprised. because
I've seen videos people put up, on their Ring doorbells of they'll do that, and then just the first kid that shows up just literally just takes the entire bowl, like doesn't dump it, just grabs the bowl and runs. The whole bowl is now gone.
Or like that one trick those kids pulled in Halloween Kills, where they distracted the couple while the other dude just snuck in and grabbed all the candy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was that whole part of that. Oh God, why did that movie have to suck the way it did?
I know, right?
The more I think about it, the more I just did not like the sequel.
Yeah.
You mean the sequel to the sequel to the sequel to the sequel to the sequel?
Thank you.
Why?
Thank you.
And technically, it's just a sequel to a sequel.
You're right, because the one that came out in 2018 ignores everything.
I know,
but the
it's
first
still
movie.
a third film in this current series.
Blah, blah. But it's not canon. It ignored everything else. Me.
You're talking about Halloween Kills, right?
Right.
Which we talked about at length last week.
Right.
Oh,
just to
gotcha.
say, Todd's already tired of that conversation from last week.
Okay, so
Anyhow, let's segue to a costumed hero.
7:32.
To tie into Halloween, we are
Time
going
of death.
to tie into Halloween, we're going to talk about a dude who dresses up as the devil to punch people.
And red pleather. Do you think it's pleather?
I mean, in the early days, it was probably pleather.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
in the early
especially
days,
after the Affleck film, then it was definitely pleather.
What's the timeline like in the Daredevil universe? When did Daredevil occur?
Well, so I mean, in the comics, you know, time never moves except the stories change.
But when was the first appearance of Daredevil?
First appearance of Daredevil was 1963 or 64.
Okay, so 63. What do you think
it was
bluer?
64.
Well, sometimes it's like it kind of like initially it would have been leather, and then in the 70s it would have turned into pleather.
Yeah.
And then eventually it would have turned back into leather.
Okay, actually,
so in the comics it was always spandex until the 90s when they gave him armor. Because everybody got armor, and they got armor and they got pouches.
Everybody got armored up.
Just a question: what's the difference between leather and pleather?
Plastic leather.
Right.
So it's not real leather. It was more like vinyl.
So
right,
animal skin versus plastic.
Fake leather. Genuine pleather, which is fake leather.
I used to work at a leather store, by the way.
I think I used to have a pleather Bears jacket.
You did. You absolutely did that. Your grandmother bought that for you. First
we
appearance
still
was
have
19.
I learned once that even things that are labeled genuine leather aren't necessarily actually leather.
Right.
But they can still bear the mark that says genuine leather for some reason. I don't know why.
I think there's like some legal gray area around genuine.
I think I learned that on TikTok. Joey.
So the jacket I have upstairs is not actual leather.
Well, I don't know that it's not, but I did learn that it might not be. And by learn, I mean I saw it on the internet, so it must be true.
Absolutely. Everything on the interwebs is true.
It's true.
So Daredevil was first. His first appearance was Daredevil #1, April of 1964.
Knew it.
Good call. Created by Stan Lee with Bill Everett was the original artist. He had input from Jack Kirby on the designs.
All right.
And for the first 7 issues, he wore
Yellow?
that.
Oh, yellow and
Yellow
orange.
with red.
I like the
red, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks almost orange from here.
Yeah, that's just the angle. It was yellow and red, and they finally put him into the all red with issue 8. I want to say it was. Let's take a look. Oh, they introduced him #7, the modern red costume, which is what he's been wearing ever since.
Right.
They've gone to various things. The movies, the TV series, they gave him different looks.
Yeah.
And even like his intro when they Frank Miller wrote the series Man Without Fear in the 90s, illustrated by John Romita Jr., and it was all about his first 6 months, figuring out who he is. Mm-hmm. And he started off in a costume which is the black with the
season 1 from the Marvel.
So that's where they took the inspiration with that. Yep. So that's Daredevil. Daredevil was introduced to me in the 80s. I was introduced to it by this wonderful Master Chief. I don't remember if he was a senior chief or Master Chief who lived on my block. He
not to be confused with the guy from Halo, right?
Well, that's the same
That's
rank.
exactly where my mind went.
It's still a naval petty officer, chief petty officer. Anyway, you jackasses. Anyway, I got into Daredevil. I was carrying my small little comic collection at 14 from my friend's house, and this guy on my block just, what are those, comic books? So, yeah. So you like comic books, do you? Yeah. Come into my basement and let me show you something.
Hello.
Oh, boy.
Oh, fuck no.
Take off your pants.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Why don't you bend over?
That,
Oops.
yeah. Looking back on it now, I'm like,
why the fuck did you do?
Here, I have some comics for you. Take off your clothes.
But this guy had been collecting Spider-Man and Daredevil comics since 1963, since he was a kid. He had a complete Spider-Man run, including, and I actually got to hold an Amazing Fantasy 15, which currently sells for millions of dollars.
Holy shit.
What's on that?
That is the very first appearance of Spider-Man. He had a complete collection of Daredevil except for issues 2 and 3 because when he went into the Navy, his mom threw out a lot of his comics, including his
Motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. But he still had his #1, and he introduced me to Daredevil. And I'm like, this seems kind of cool. And as I started diving deeper into Frank Miller, as I fell in love with Frank Miller's work, I discovered Born Again and his run on Daredevil with Elektra and Bullseye, and I just fell in love with the character. I love his, I identify with the Catholic angst
Is that
of the character.
Frank Miller? Isn't that also who did Dark Knight Returns?
He did.
Oh, cool.
Frank Miller is an absolute god and legend in the comic book industry.
world, for sure.
Just after a while, he goes nuts.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Crazy.
Old
I
age.
heard about that.
And I will say The Dark Knight Returns lost me a little bit.
And also, apparently, he directed the absolutely bizarre movie, The Spirit.
He did, but he also co-directed Sin City with Robert Rodriguez.
I did like that
which
one.
was based on his work, which is fantastic work. It was right around the time of 300. It was where Frank Miller lost most people was right after 9/11 because he steered hard into Islamophobia, and I don't excuse it, but the works that he produced are still phenomenal works. I separate the art from the artist in that case because, I don't agree with the whole Islamophobia thing at all, not even close. But his work is still spectacular.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, but I'm not going to cancel the guy and say we need to burn all of his books because he took a turn later in his life, right?
I mean, if that was the case, how can you ever read Mark Twain? I mean,
Or J.K. Rowling.
or any great artist who lived in a time before ours.
If we ever have a serious podcast, we can talk about some of those things. But
Yeah, let's be honest, that ain't happening.
I'd be happy to do that sometime.
Absolutely.
So you gave me a couple of. I never read.
I mean, I would love to know why Orson Scott Card wrote one great book and he went fucking crazy.
He did go a little crazy, but I never read a single Daredevil comic book in my entire life, and you gave me your couple compilations or whatever.
The best of Frank Miller.
Best ofs, right? And so I picked two different books. I picked up the first one, read the first story. I said, okay, and then I picked up the other book and read the first two stories out of that book, and went, okay. This is a comic book.
Yes.
This is not me. This is not. I'm not. And you guys know me. I'm not an old school comic book guy, right?
I completely get that.
I did not get into comic books until the 90s, and I didn't get into comic books. I got into the X-Men, and I got into McFarlane's Spider-Man, and I got into Liefeld's X-Force.
I'm sorry.
Exactly. So am I. And that's what got me into comic books. So I've never been a comic book guy. I've always been comic book adjacent who collects some comic books.
Yep.
And then all I did was start to collect the super eclectic, weird one-offs and, anything that was related to Dungeons and Dragons or fantasy and Elric and Conan and, a lot of Bizarro World 80s and 90s comics. I have a lot of that kind of stuff. So I do not, and none of them are worth a dime, but to me they're super cool. And I was attracted more to the art and the characters of the X-Men than I was. And I mean, let's be honest. Why? Because I watched the X-Men cartoon as a younger man, and those characters are super cool. Right. And so, I mean, that's really why I got into it. So while I can appreciate the art and the kind of story, and I get it, and I get the character, and as Daredevil grew and came out on the TV show, and the first movie sucked, but the TV show was phenomenal, which we'll talk about. But I could not, I understand what it is. It took me 3 comics to go, this is not for me, but I get it. I totally understand what it is.
Now, did I give you Born Again? Did I give you the... Okay.
I have no idea what you gave me.
Oh, did I give
me
that
2
to
books
you
that I
to read,
still haven't
Joey?
You may have given that to me.
It looks like this.
To read.
And the story,
let me see.
I didn't have
Actually,
that
that's not the cover of the one that I've got.
This is the anthology one.
Yeah. That's the one that I have.
I don't think I have that one.
Oh, yeah, that's the one you gave me.
Okay. So that is the story right there and we're going to do a deep dive on that simply because that is what the entire season 3 of the Daredevil show was based on.
Gotcha.
I actually think the show did better.
The show was fantastic. Let's remember, too, that was written in 1986.
Oh, it's fine.
Right.
Or 85 on that. I think that was 85.
I'm actually, the one thing I will say is I'm amazingly shocked how quick the storyline gets wrapped up. In a comic book form.
Yeah. And that's where Miller, it was right around the time it was The Dark Knight Returns, where Miller's storytelling really takes a turn, because you're right, those Daredevil, the Miller and the Miller Jansen issues that I gave you, from his early run, they're very traditional late 70s, early 80s comic books where you got the 9-panel layout, you got a lot of exposition in there, you've got and they tell huge stories in very compact time frames, whereas the 90s when you started collecting with the X-Men, and it really
text
started
boxes alone.
Right.
Right.
Let me see.
Show it to the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of text boxes,
lots of exposition.
But what I love, I mean, that page especially, the emotion that David Mazzucchelli was able to.
The art
evoke
is
in
actually
that.
interesting. The one thing I will say is the penciler, the whoever
David Mazzucchelli,
yep, is fantastic.
Yep,
and very descriptive. But the inker definitely, it's all primary colors.
That's the colorist. And the other thing to remember too
red,
is
red, yellow, and blue.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's also a product of its time.
Well, this is definitely.
And two, that was colorized to go on a newsprint page, and then it was scanned in, and that ended up there. So the feeling is a lot different. It's one of the reasons why for books that were printed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, I don't care for digital because when they printed them on newsprint, it looks a lot different than it's going to look scanned in, and the artists knew that. The artists,
they're more saturated, so when they get put on muted newsprint.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. And you've got to deal with aging and yellowing. Starting in the mid '90s, they started working with better paper, archival. That was more archival safe, better printing methods, brighter whites, so they could do all sorts of dynamic stuff.
That's a good point.
But the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it just wasn't that way.
Yeah.
It was still kind of considered a throwaway art form at that time.
Until Roy Lichtenstein ripped everybody off. We're not going to talk about that.
I will also say, like, a panel like this where, like, he's kind of talking in the dark, I find it very interesting and fascinating, but it's all, like, it's very subdivided. There's not a lot of panels where they go across the page. Not a lot of cross bleeds, and they're very subdivided.
Show your camera. I was going to say, show your camera. Yeah.
So...
And Miller was great at his characterizations. That's what I love the most. Mixing the
emotional.
Yeah. That's what sucked me in with The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
God damn Ken, the comic book store owner, because he did this to me.
Yeah.
It's all his fault.
I just remember even being a kid and looking at comic books when I was prime age to get into them, and just looking at them, and I was such a voracious reader.
Yeah.
As soon as I could read, 10, 11, 12 years old, I was reading novels and books just constantly.
Yeah.
And I would look at comic books and go, well, I could get so much more. I could spend, the same amount of time and look at a book and read a book and get so much more story than I am out of these 10 or 12 or 15 page comic books. Like, it just
22 pages, sir.
The artwork held no fascination for me, so I didn't care about the artwork at all. But I was all about the story. I mean, I'm reading The Sword of Shannara and Tolkien's stuff and David Eddings and all these books when I'm in 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Like, these are super big, heavy fantasy novels.
Right.
And so I kind of was that, like, well, comic books are for kids or for babies, and I'm reading, adult, quote-unquote, novels at the age of 13.
But then you pick up something like The Watchmen. You look at...
Right. And so I never would give anything like that a chance, even.
Right.
There was also graphic novels. When did graphic novels actually started happening?
So... in the 80s is really when you started to kind of see the transformation, right? Okay. Watchmen came out in the 80s. I got my first trade paperback, my first, quote, graphic novel of Watchmen in 1987, I think, because it came out just as I started collecting comics. It was coming out in 86. I still have my V for Vendetta. You get those writers, but it's like any other kind of writer. Yeah, you're reading the greats. You're reading Tolkien, but for every Tolkien that's out there, there are 15, Joe Bag of Donuts who put out fluff, and it's like any other medium. You want, if you're looking for the heavy stuff, your Frank Herberts, your Asimovs. For comics, that's when you start looking at later Frank Miller. That's when you start looking. If there's one comic book writer, Grant Morrison, who makes me feel stupid every time I read one of his comics.
Right.
And I swear to God, I read it, I'm like, holy shit, this is so deep
Yeah.
and so.
Well, Neil Gaiman makes everybody
yeah.
feel that
Right,
way, right? Yeah.
right. Neil
Sandman.
Gaiman is another one who is a game changer as a
Good
comic
Omens
book
season
writer.
2 coming out.
And then you get people, and Brian K. Vaughan.
And I read some Gaiman stuff, comic stuff, before I read American Gods, which made me figure out, oh yeah, this guy really is a genius.
Yeah.
he,
I love his short stories. Too.
and he can make the most of any fucking medium you give him. You put him in a comic book, he gives you he gives you John Constantine. He created
Right.
Constantine. He created Sandman. He created Angela for the Spawn comics,
Yep.
who is now owned by Marvel. I don't know. He won a
That's
lot.
funny. I didn't know
Wait,
that.
Spawn is owned by Marvel now?
No.
Angela.
So the character of Angela, who is an angelic force in opposition to Spawn, right? She was created by Neil Gaiman for a story that he wrote in the Spawn comics. And because Spawn is a creator-owned book, Neil Gaiman won a lawsuit that said, no, I created her, therefore I own her. And he sold that character out of the Spawn universe and dropped her into Marvel. And now
What?
she's Thor's sister.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah. They dropped her into the Asgardians.
That's
what I
funny.
got.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Appropriate. Anyway.
But they're genius. They're
Anyway.
yeah. This is the long way of saying, in any medium you're gonna have a Vince Gilligan. And you're going to have Married with Children. You're going to have a Breaking Bad, and you're going to have Law and Order SVU
Al
for 20 years.
Bundy
Criminal
is like
Minds.
the Bible of marriage relationships.
I still
ma'am.
live by his words every day.
No, ma'am.
Right.
Was it
Do you aspire to be a shoe salesman?
I do. One day.
Hooters, yum yum yum. Hooters on a girl that's dumb.
I mean, there should be a book that is, about 4 chapters of Married with Children and 1 chapter Little Giants.
Yeah,
starring
sure.
Ed O'Neill.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
How does a book star someone?
I guess maybe authored by.
Featuring. They're authored by. There you go.
there we go. But I fell in love with Daredevil because of Miller's run, because of the Born Again story, and then I went back and I found the whole Elektra and the death of Elektra, and that's kind of what got turned into the first Affleck movie, which was
Affleck.
so
Honestly,
much
on the
potential.
quality of
I knew nothing about Daredevil when that movie came out, and Jennifer Garner, not she's easy on the eyes.
Yep.
And she was she the Alias girl
Yes.
woman?
Electra.
Yeah.
No.
she was from
She
Alias.
She was on a
was on
TV
the
show called
Alias.
Alias, and that was before the movie, right?
It was. That
because
was-
my wife was a big fan of Alias, so I knew who she was because I'd watched some of those TV shows
Yep.
with her. And then, of course, Ben Affleck, and wasn't Favreau his buddy?
He was.
Yep.
That
Well,
was played
from
Augie
Alrighty.
Nelson.
And so I'm like, well, this could be fun. And I didn't know who Favreau was at the time, obviously, but
Yeah.
I knew Jennifer Garner and Affleck, and I watched it. I'm like, well, that was and Joey Pants was the
Joey-
detective,
Joey Pantaleone.
and
He was the reporter, Ben Urich.
reporter. That's
Yep.
right.
Little did we
And
know
then who-
Favreau, while on set, was taking notes on how not to do a superhero
Right.
movie.
And who else was in that movie famous that I probably don't remember?
So Kevin Smith had a bit part as
Oh, did
and he had written Daredevil in the mid '90s. He started off
a movie.
TV comic.
He wrote a Daredevil comic.
That was
Yeah, he's a comic writer, too. Yeah.
Well, I know he's a comic guy, but I didn't know he did Daredevil.
Oh,
he
okay.
did.
That
yeah.
seems like
Yeah,
a
that's pretty
that seems like a
cool.
way too big a name for Kevin Smith to be doing.
Well, and the thing is, Daredevil for the longest time was really he was a C-list. I mean, if you think about it,
Sure.
Iron Man until
Right.
until that movie, until
Was
Robert
not a
Downey,
top, yeah.
he was a C-list character.
Right.
You know, you
I
had
mean, you're also getting. Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell
Oh,
was
that's
in
right.
it.
He was the,
Michael Clark Duncan was
It
Fish.
was-
did
was-
Colin Farrell
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was
oh, that's
Kingpin.
right. Now that you say that, I remember
Yeah.
that.
Who did
Yeah.
Colin Farrell play?
Which was kind of cool because
Bullseye.
it was a Bullseye.
He was Bullseye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot that too because I remember he's in the bar and he flicks paper
Hair
clips
play-
or
oh, yeah,
something
yeah.
at the guy's
Yeah.
throat and kills him. I'm
Dude,
like, that was
yeah.
nasty.
I mean,
dude.
this,
then-
movie, this movie's stacked like this guy right here. His name is Eric Vasari.
Yep.
Yeah, he's been in
He's from
everything.
Stargate
Yep.
and 50 million other
He's been
things.
everything.
Who played Mr. Casada? He was the criminal defendant.
That was kind of a big deal that Michael Clark Duncan was Kingpin, because Kingpin obviously in the comics is a white guy,
right?
And he's a big giant black guy, so that was kind of a big deal, right?
And that kind of bothered me a little bit, because it's like, so you're gonna bring in this
real?
No,
okay, all right.
No, seriously,
okay.
I don't. That's not it. I'm like, so you're gonna bring in this phenomenal black actor to play the fucking villain?
Oh, right. Well, that's true.
The black guy is the villain.
Bad guy? Why has got to be a black guy?
I mean,
exactly. That was it.
Well, at least he doesn't die. He doesn't die in the movie, right?
No, he does not.
At least he doesn't.
They caught him at the end. They got David Keith is also in the movie.
Yeah,
because
that guy right there, who's in everything.
Wait,
Paul Ben Victor.
Oh yeah, David Keith. I'm sure they thought this was going to be the next franchise, right?
Well,
or they were
David
hoping.
Keith is Bizarro Keith David.
There you go.
It was because they produced that even worse Electro movie.
Oh, they did an Electro movie.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I totally forgot about that.
The only thing I know of...
That was so bad.
They're yelling into the mic, Joe.
I never actually saw it, but that was so bad. Apparently, they never even. I totally forgot about it.
The only thing I know about the movie is that the villain in it is the Hand, with the leader being played by Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, who also played Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movie.
Of course.
Which is really cool.
There you go, yeah.
The thing that I'm really bummed about is the director of this movie that ended up doing Elektra and some of the other things also directed some of my favorite movies called Grumpy Old Men and Grumpy Old Men.
Yeah. That's funny.
Oh, I love those movies. They're hysterical.
My favorite is,
So is it just about
Burgess
you
Meredith,
guys?
a.k.a.
Pretty much.
Yes, exactly. Burgess Meredith, a.k.a. the Penguin from the original Burt Ward Batman.
You mean Rocky's trainer in Rocky 3.
And Rocky's trainer in Rocky 3. He goes, something along the lines of...
He's a bum.
It's okay if your kid swallows a quarter, but if he craps 2 dimes and a nickel, then you got a problem.
Wow, that's some advice right there. That's some deep thought
I don't know
right
what
there.
to say about that.
But Daredevil,
No, wait. So they did Daredevil movie.
yes.
Yes.
Didn't Elektra die in that movie?
Yep.
So then, how did they do an Elektra movie?
Resurrection.
Yeah.
Was comic books, I guess, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody ever dies in a comic book.
Even
Uncle
she died
Ben.
in the show when they brought her back for the
She
Defenders.
did. You're right. Oh, they did. You're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
How did they? I saw all of those. How did they bring her back in Defenders? I don't remember.
Also in Resurrection.
Right. It was.
Well, I guess by it has
Little
to be called
Resurrection.
Resurrection, but
Yeah.
how
They
did
put her
how
in,
did
like,
they do
Weird
this time?
cradle of life that the Hand had that, like, it was powered by people's blood, but the problem in the show was they were running out.
Chinese secret. Quite literally.
I know what that actually reference is. So, put it in comic books.
Iron
Nobody
Fist
ever
right now.
actually dies, so you can always.
Well,
bring
with the
somebody back.
exception of Ben Parker and Bruce Wayne's parents.
Yeah, that's true.
And even then, Bruce Wayne's parents could come back in an Elseworlds thing, like Flashpoint.
Right. There's one other. The original Captain Marvel from Marvel.
Marvel.
They gave him cancer in
Wait,
1982.
Captain Marvel is not Marvel.
Right. Okay. So
I'm confused.
Yes.
Long
Here we
story.
go.
books.
Don't ask a comic book nerd a question, because
All right.
now you're going to
Damn
get
it!
this.
Because now he's going to answer it.
Right. In the 40s, Charleston Comics created Captain Marvel. Shazam.
Right. Yes.
Not this guy.
Okay. But I
In
know
the
that there was
60s,
a Marvel as
right.
well.
In the comics, Marvel, the original Marvel was Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel for short. He was a character from the 60s until 1982, and they spun off Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
Okay.
I know. I've heard that. Right?
So in
Rather than remember, I've
1982,
heard that, yes.
they
I don't
gave
remember any of this.
they gave Captain Marvel cancer, and they killed him in one of the
That was
very
nice.
first graphic novels.
That was nice of them to do, just to give a guy cancer.
Now they brought him back very briefly in the early aughts, but then you find out,
Wasn't really
it's
him.
a Skrull. So
I was just gonna say.
he's
I
still
was just gonna say.
dead.
If you tell me it's a scroll, it's
Secret
a goddamn
Invasion?
Skrull.
Secret Invasion.
Oh my
Hell
god!
yeah.
They're
How
like-
would the Skrulls know that this guy was around? I mean, it was like years
well,
ago he died.
he was a famous Kree warrior, and the Kree.
Oh, he was a Kree warrior,
Yes.
okay.
The biggest problem
Yeah.
with
You
comics, or the biggest plus side of comics, is when you
both.
click on a name of Wikipedia
Uh-huh.
and you get the entire fucking history,
Right.
and you just get the
Right.
the 20,000 foot synopsis of it, and
Right.
you're going, how the fuck did this
Right.
happen?
Right.
Like all like
Which I've done
Oh,
plenty
yeah.
times.
you
I've
just
done.
go down a rabbit
back
hole
in-
at 10 o'clock
back
at night.
in the day, before the internet, I loved to go to the bookstore and get the giant encyclopedia of Marvel Comics
Yes.
or encyclopedia of DC Comics.
Yeah, they did the
And
Who's Who in DC.
whatever it was
Marvel,
called, right? And I would set it down. It was giant. I would set it down on the table, and I had an hour to kill or nothing else to do,
Yep.
or whatever. And I would sit there and I would just read through all these goofy ass comic book characters I never read in my entire life, just because, like you said, the stories were this long, and
Yeah.
they died 7.5 times,
Right.
and this is 6.5 times they came back, and all the goofy stuff was always fun to read through, and I always thought that was entertaining and interesting, but I never got into any of the comic stories. You know what I mean?
I can get that.
Yeah.
I really do. I look at that whole slew, that 3,800 comics that I have sitting over there, and that does not include my collected works. And in there's a lot of fluff in there. There's a lot of filler in there.
And I'm sure there are comic book collectors out there who would say, 3,800, that's a good start.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
God.
I would call that a good start.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're collectors, that
Right.
have millions of comics. Right?
Absolutely.
Right? So I mean,
And you know what? If there are any filler comics you don't want from there, I'll just take them.
Well, and that's why.
good news is you're going to get them all eventually.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
going to be yours at some point.
If he doesn't sell them first.
Yeah, well, no. The thing is, I'm only planning on selling the ones that are worth ridiculous amount.
Right.
It's like, okay, I love Batman. I love Todd McFarlane, but I've got a copy of Batman in there that if I can get it graded at 9.8 is worth $2,000, and it's a filler story.
Right.
It's only going for that much money
Because of an appearance or something?
No, because of it's a Todd McFarlane's first Batman cover, and it's hard to get into a 9.8 because it's from 1988.
Right.
Yep.
Other than and my copy, I'm like, a little spine roll there. I press that, and that's perfect. I might. I don't want to put a hole in my collection, but I'd rather put $2,200 in my pocket.
By the way, you put me on a YouTube death spiral. YouTube.
DeathTube,
DeathTube.
I like
That's
that.
another.
DeathTube.
Let's
That's a
be
different
honest, that's
website.
what it really is.
It's
You're stuck till you
DeathTube.
die.
I like
A
that.
YouTube death spiral about pressing comics.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, thank you for that. By
You're
the way,
welcome.
yeah. So I've learned about how that works now,
Yeah.
and the machines and all those kind of fun things.
Maybe I should send my dad that link instead so he could stop watching John Deere tractor videos.
No, John Deere tractor videos are pretty cool, dude.
They can be.
So
He actually paid John Deere, like one of the companies or something like that, for $100-something to basically change a band on his lawnmower the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, you become a farmer.
yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah.
John Deere. It's brand loyalty,
Yeah.
which I'm okay with.
So just to go around, I know I'm the only one who's really delved deep into the comics.
What are you talking about?
You've read a bunch.
I mean, I've read a shit ton
Okay.
of comics, but the problem is I don't buy them nowadays because I don't feel like.
I buy them to
digital.
collect. Yeah, I've got the digital app for current stuff.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And doing some research. I collect very few. But yeah.
I've read the 3 comics you gave me. That's no, you gave me 2 giant books full. I've read 3 comics. That's the first and the last, and now I'll never read anymore.
And what I'll do is I'll give you Born Again because that is a
think
full
you
blown
already-
story beginning to end.
You already gave me that in order to have me read it.
Right. You
I
said
didn't.
you were gonna take it to work so you could
doesn't
read it on
doesn't
your
have to be
break.
tonight. It can be anytime. No
Right.
hurry. Anytime.
But
My only requirement is that it has to be in a different style. Like I can't read the 9 blah blah blah. I'm like my brain just doesn't. I can't.
Something more modern.
I get 2.5 pages in and I'm falling asleep laying in bed watching it. Right.
Sure.
And I can sit there and read 100 pages of a novel. Right.
sure.
But because for me, comic books are a visual thing as
Yeah.
much as they are a story thing.
Yeah.
They just are. That's the media for me has to be a visual as much as, and for me, that old school comic book thing just doesn't do it for me. But
Frank Miller started to break the mold. The stuff he did with Mazzucchelli was a little bit. It was really Dark Knight Returns that kind of started everything when he did that. And then Watchmen just completely. Watchmen stuck very closely to 9-panel, but it was guys like McFarlane and Liefeld and Jim Lee who started breaking open those panels and giving you interior splash pages, or 2 panels, and giving you but the downside for that for me is stories that used to be told in 2 to 3 issues are now taking 6 to 8 issues because
But that's why you have graphic novels.
Oh,
Right.
and the price is 3 times what it used to be.
Yes.
Oh, look at that. And is that when the comic book industry boomed in the 90s? Oh, yes, it was. I wonder why. Really
no,
awesome
no.
artwork.
I mean, look at this is
Really
from the Blade
amazing.
Runner comic that I'm
Right,
reading right
yeah.
now.
Ooh, let
I
me
mean, how
see.
cool, man.
So the boom of the 90s
Wow.
had absolutely nothing to do with the art and the changing style. It had everything to do with speculators who went, hey, Amazing Spider-Man #1 is worth $20,000. So this speedball... No. I sold a guy 10 copies of
but
Speedball
you're talking about
#1.
value. I'm talking about people who are interested in going to look. I didn't get interested in comic books until they looked good.
Sure.
Like they look like crap to me. They look like. They looked like what I saw on the Sunday pages, which you guys just described is exactly what they were.
Sure.
They look like Sunday pages, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to read Sunday pages. That's why I had no interest in that. The story could be the greatest story ever. Like, if I want to read a good story, I'm going to read a novel. When they started to look amazing, and I would walk into the comic book store, the game store that had comics, because, I was kind of a pre-gamer, right? And I was a D&D guy. And I'm like, comic books were never my thing. And,
And that's
a little
completely-
bitty comic book store opened up in my town in Ottawa, Illinois. And I'm like, well, let's go check it out. Like, this was the first one. Like, and they had all these crazy. I'm like, what? Like, this isn't comic books. And I'm looking through the stuff like, this is like nothing I've ever seen before. I'm going to
It
take
is
as many
funny,
as I
like,
can
one of my
buy.
you're from
These
Ottawa.
are super cool. Like, it looked like nothing I had ever seen. So I
Sure.
don't think you can downplay that. Kind of like you splash is an overused
Okay,
word
let me-
in comics, but I mean that had to be a huge attractant to a lot of people like me. That was like it looked like
Yes.
nothing I had ever seen before.
So-
So the speculation and the valuation is a whole other ball of wax, right?
So you were the exception to the rule, and you were a new comic
you
book reader
say
at that
I'm the
point.
exception to the rule, but everybody I know was like me. I don't know that I was the exception. I think I was the rule, and the speculators really took advantage of it. I think it was a spike in popularity, right?
Sure.
They were selling more comics in those years than they by a factorial, right? By an order of magnitude than
Right.
they had in the previous years.
But
that was speculators don't make people buy more comics.
So, but
They make the people who already buy comics buy more comics, but they don't get you new comic buyers, in my opinion.
The most purchased comic book ever was X-Men #1 by Jim Lee. But they put out 5 different covers.
Sure.
So the collectors were going in and they were buying, if you're a comic book reader, you're going to go, oh, that's cool.
I
I'll
own
read
one
that
of
story.
those.
Right.
I own one of those.
Right. There were the people who chased down all 5. And then they had to chase down all 5 plus a reader copy. Oh,
Yeah.
but it's X-Men #1 and it's Jim Lee. It's going to be worth a fortune. It sold 8.5 million copies worldwide, which was a stupid amount. And we're talking about it at a time when comics were selling 150,000 copies,
Right.
and they sold 8 million copies.
Right.
And they can now be, and that's why they polybagged the death of Superman.
Right.
Why?
God,
Because you
I bought one.
bought one, you opened it.
I
you
had
read
an
it.
uncle ended
Yep.
up buying 4 copies of it, and he never cracked open a comic book.
And I think that might have been the first comic I ever bought 2 of. One to keep and one to read.
Right.
But I'm actually curious. So, like, did people did people not have that like extravaganza event thing prior to this? Because you could tell nowadays if somebody said we're gonna make a comic book called The Death of Batman,
Right.
right? You know that immediately that publisher is going to make a revival of some sort,
Of course.
a new Batman. And did they think that Superman was gone? Like, you know what I'm saying? At
Yes.
the time?
I think you're right. I think that was the first time that had been done.
Because it
For
wouldn't
a-
happen again today.
And it was
major-
and it was a
for
confluence of what Tony's saying and what I'm saying is that the readers wanted to see what the hell was going on, and the collectors saw nothing but dollar signs.
Yes.
So
Let's
literally,
be fair. Superman was the first superhero. Seeing
Oh,
him die,
right.
you're just
I
like,
get
what
it.
the fuck?
You know,
I'm just
it's-
saying that thing would
it's-
not happen again.
It's like the
I think you're right, to be honest.
No, because now you've got Superman's quasi retired in the comics, so they can bring up his son. His son Jonathan is now the new Superman.
Superboy.
No, Superman, son of Kal-El.
Okay.
And he's the one who's bisexual, and everybody's going off the rails because Superman's
Oh, of
not
course.
Dean
Is he the
Koontz
one
out
where
there
they
making
changed it so it's not the American way too? And that was a really Cool. That was a better tagline.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I get where you're going with that. Yeah, but they still do things like that. They took Bruce Wayne out of time. They killed him. They had
I guess what I'm saying is they
still
still do those,
yes,
but people don't understand that it's not final anymore.
Right. Yeah, well,
it could be final for 6 months.
They killed off the Flash for 20 years. For 20 years, Barry Allen was not the Flash.
Wally West?
Ran himself to death in Final in
Didn't they have the other Flash, Wally?
Right, they brought in
somebody
Wally.
else took up the mantle, right?
That's what I'm trying to say. They didn't get rid of the Flash comics
because once upon a time humans were mortal, right? And a human would be a hero, and then he died, and then a new person would take up that mantle, and they would be the Flash. Right. That was kind of the way it worked for a while.
They
killed off
something
similar in the Young Justice show. They killed off Wally West's Kid Flash and replaced him with
Impulse, right?
I think that was his name. It was Flash's grandson.
Yeah, Bart Allen. Yes.
Yep.
They do this in comics, and they introduce new characters. In fact, one of the biggest characters right now is Miles Morales because of the Into the Spider-Man.
Right.
And he was brought in the Ultimate Comics when they killed Peter Parker.
Of course.
And Peter Parker stayed dead in the Ultimate line, and they just took Miles and they merged him into the regular Marvel universe and made him a character along. The regular Marvel universe is Peter Parker, so you can have both. And I'm perfectly cool with that.
Yeah.
It's all good. All I'm trying to say is you can still have events, but it's a comic book, so no one really truly stays dead if they don't want to.
So I still remember the day that I was standing in the comic shop talking with the guys, and a dude walked in, and this was 1990-ish, right around there. And guy walks in, and he says, "So, what comics are going to be valuable?" Literally the words that came out of his mouth.
Oh, gosh.
I said, and
if that comic book owner just went, everything on the left side right here.
The owner wasn't there, but the guy behind the it's all based on speculation and character, yada, yada, yada. You never know. If I could predict that, I'd be a millionaire right now. I said, well, let me show you something. I said, this is a brand new character created by Steve Ditko.
Okay.
Co-creator of Spider-Man. It's the #1 issue. It's Speedball. It's a character that even now today, let's
nobody ever remembers.
Speedball?
Exactly. Now the Speedball's biggest claim to fame right now was he caused the big crisis event that caused Civil War in the comics.
Oh. He killed Goliath?
He didn't. No. That happened. That was the Thor clone. That's another story altogether. Let me check something out. Cover price.
Giant Man, I think it was.
No, it was Goliath. You were correct.
Wow, 1988.
Okay, so let me log in. So Speedball #1 on cover price. Let's see what this is worth now. Because when I told him that it was, #1, and I gave him the rundown, and nothing I told him was false, he bought out every copy that they had. Literally every copy.
How mad do you think that dude is now? What is up with that dude's outfit? He looks like Discount Thing.
Yeah. September 1st, 1988, it came out. The comic is worth $6.40. Ungraded.
If you had a million of them.
Right.
You'd get nothing for them.
The thing is,
I don't recycle paper factory.
Yeah, right.
So, and we can do an entire deep dive. Yes, there were those, and right now those are the people like you who started in the 90s are buying up the nostalgia. That's why that Todd McFarlane cover that has. No, there's no special characters. There's no special story. It's not a first appearance of anyone, and it's $100 comic because.
But that was what got us into comics.
Right.
But
you guys are helping to fuel the market now.
Right.
I started. Honestly, I only started like 6 years before that.
Right.
It's not like I started a long time before that. But the 90s were fueled. The reason Marvel went bankrupt in the 90s and sold off the rights to Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four for pennies was because they overproduced in that time, and they burned their market by putting out everything was die cut, polybagged, foil embossed, glow in the dark, holographic, and they always made it so you needed to buy 2, 3, 4 copies. And the speculators went through it. It's like, oh, this brand new die cut. Well, this has got to be a special book, so I've got to pick all of this up. And it bloated the market with a lot of shit that's not worth a damn thing.
Yeah.
X-Force #1. I'm like, this has got to be. I'm like, this has got to be worth something, right?
Yeah.
I found it in a dollar bin, so I bought it for $1. I'm like, oh look, it's worth $1.
Yeah, because they made how billion many of them?
Right.
Yeah.
So right.
I will tell you that when I was in college, not when I was in college, after I was out of college, but not married, and I brought my wife into a comic book store in Bloomington or Normal, where we went to school and where we met.
Yep.
And we're looking around in this comic book store I'd never been in before, and I'm like, I picked up a couple comics, and I was trying to finish up my Spider-Man, and they had Spider-Man 13 in his black
costume,
first appearance in that run, issue 13, which I already had some, whatever, and I'm like, what's this going for now? And they were like, it was like $50 or something. I mean, something ridiculous. Like, and this comic had just come out. And like $50? Are you kidding me? Like, I have 2 of these. He's like, yeah, that's what they're going for. I'm like, are you buying them for? It's like, no, I'm not buying them for $50. But
they'll pay you $25 for.
Well, not even, I think. But I mean,
right?
And my wife was like, what is going on here? Like, I was explaining it to her, like she had no clue, like anything. Right. Like, I was still new to it, but she was I had no clue that these things had value. And I said, well, here's the thing. It's worth $50 now because it's cool and it's hot and it's new. And I said, so you got to act on it now if you want to make any money off of it. If I had known that when it first came out, I would have bought 50 of them.
Right.
And I would have waited 6 months and I'd have sold them for, $15 or $20 a pop.
Yep.
So that the dealer could sell them for $50 a pop. And then because a year from now they're going to be worth nothing. And I'm standing there in the store talking to my wife.
Yep.
And the guy behind the counter goes, he's got it figured out.
Yeah.
Like, he said that. Yeah. And that was way before I had any machinations of being a store owner.
$2,200 comic that you're talking about.
It was so obvious at the time that it was such an inflated, crazy market that it was patently obvious to me, and I was a brand new guy into that world, and it was so obvious what was going on right then.
So the modern market is so much different than it was at that point in time,
because it was brand new, right? That was the first time really they had just gone crazy, right?
The 90s saw this weird explosion, and a lot of it was fueled by speculators. Because the collectors had always been around, but now, God, it blows my mind. For example, I had my initial comic books that I collected from 1986 to 1992. In 92, I sold my comics except for maybe 100 of them. But I got rid of my complete Amazing Spider-Man run, which included all of Todd McFarlane's run, including the very first Venom. That is now going for hundreds of dollars, and I got pennies for it. I sold my Incredible Hulk 180 and 181. That at the time, and I went back through some old comics and I found the values. So because I'm like, I've got to be crazy to think that I only paid $60 for the first appearance of Wolverine. I'm not crazy because that was the value from Mile High Comics and all these. I'm like, Jesus, that was the going price. That comic is now worth tens of thousands of dollars for the first appearance of Wolverine. I got 200 when I sold it,
and we're super stoked for it.
I was unbelievably stoked.
Right.
But now we're in the age where the 80s are considered the copper age, right? It's not quite modern. Modern started with the glossy paper. It's still on newsprint.
Yep.
And there's something going on nowadays where and so much of this has been fueled by the pandemic. In the last 18 months,
in every capacity.
I look at my collection of comics, and my wife's ears have
and it's cars, and it's it's like things that are actual things. Like a vehicle is a thing. Like the collectible car industry has gone through the freaking roof.
Yes.
Cars that were worth $2 million are now worth $10 million. Cars that were worth $100,000 are now worth $500,000.
So my collection's value shot up by $250 since yesterday, apparently.
Just out of curiosity, how much is Daredevil Born Again worth?
So it's not worth a tremendous amount and see, this is what always confuses me. Daredevil Born Again, written by a comic book legend, story's been adapted for television.
Isn't worth as much.
But isn't it because they made a crap ton of them? Don't they make a bunch of those bigger books?
Well, no. At the time, remember, Daredevil Born Again happened in the mid '80s, before the '90s boom, where they were printing 100,000. So at that point in time, they were probably printing.
Here's the thing:
40 or
for
50.
story reasons, it's not a first appearance of anything.
You don't see anything unique in it, really.
That it's the only thing that's unique is it's a uniquely good story.
Yeah. Well, good storytelling isn't rewarded.
That's
Sadly.
Honestly, yeah, that's the problem.
That's a problem. That is a problem, for sure.
The other thing is, like, if we go into the comics a little bit, there's a couple of interesting things about it. And the first one is this: they had this character that comes in halfway through called Nuke. And he's a super soldier.
Was his first name Duke?
Duke Nuke?
No, it's not Duke, and he doesn't have like a last name of M. Duke Nuke.
Yeah, so the whole run of comics in raw condition is $7 a pop.
You're nearly so clever as you think you are.
I don't care. I'm messing with you guys.
It's okay.
And
you made a reference, and we got it.
And you know what? Also, I attempted a segue earlier.
Good job.
You did.
It didn't work, but
well done.
The interesting thing is, so like it's a Daredevil comic, and so halfway through they have this, and I'm trying to figure out how they're going to resolve it, and out of nowhere. It's like the fourth wall breaks and the Avengers come in. Captain America shows up.
Wow.
Yeah. The fourth wall. That's not breaking.
It's not. No, it wasn't a fourth wall. It was more like.
Let's be honest,
it's not even a
Daredevil.
Deus Ex Machina either. But anyhow, I guess what I'm just trying to say is like. So you think this is a very personal Daredevil story because it's a story about basically he gets framed by Wilson Fisk. And he basically he finds out his identity,
right?
And he basically destroys everything.
Oh, okay.
From his personal life on. Yeah, it's very Spider-Man.
Very Spider-Man.
He finds out who he is. He destroys his career. He blows up his home, and he has Matt Murdock killed, or so he thinks. But Daredevil gets out before.
That's the one thing I was trying to figure out, like the killing part.
Yeah,
I was like, how do you fuck that up?
So that's the point: is that Kingpin thought he killed Matt Murdock /
Exactly.
Daredevil.
That's the Born Again
part. Of course,
part.
he didn't die.
It's one of my
and he gets
favorite.
away, and then that's season 3 of the show.
Yes.
Because then he's back in his head wrap,
right?
Running around,
so
hiding in the monastery.
The one good thing the series did that they didn't have this Nuke character in because
that's because they put him into Jessica Jones.
Correct.
Wait.
Yes.
What? Wait. Is he the season 3 villain?
No, he's the guy who's popping the pills.
Yes. The red pill, the white pill, the blue pill, the patriotic pills. Blah, blah.
Right.
Anyhow, I felt like he wasn't a Daredevil. Like, I expected Bullseye to show up halfway through.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Well, wait, wasn't he in?
He wasn't in the this series called Born Again at all. So he was in a later series.
Yeah, they so what they did was for the TV show they kind of mashed a couple of things together,
of course,
because they introduced Poindexter, who was Bullseye.
Gotcha.
But
he even had the little bullseye symbols when he was in the.
I thought so. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what they did was the character was Nuke in the comics that Kingpin had dressed up, and instead they found this as a means to introduce Bullseye into the series.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they ever named him that in the TV show.
No,
I don't think they ever. I don't think that word ever was uttered.
They didn't make it overly cheesy in the movie in 2003. Oh, it was like.
Bullseye.
Oh, yeah.
It was like
over the top,
scene chewing,
ridiculously silly.
Yes,
right.
Oh, but
I actually it was fun. Like I remember, there's a scene in an airplane where he like kills that
the old lady.
I loved
Peanut. Yeah.
I loved how stupid that movie was.
Yes,
that is to me. That movie is a great awful movie.
Yeah,
like it's
honestly,
a great stupid B movie.
Right?
If it's on TV, you watch it.
Yeah.
I've said this before. I love how Matt Murdock sucks so bad as a prosecutor that he has to dress up as Daredevil to tie up loose ends.
He had to fix his own stuff.
Daredevil.
Right? Yeah,
Matt
awesome.
Murdock is a defense attorney. You twit.
Exactly, but he was playing prosecutor that time.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, he's actually right. I'm sitting there watching this, and he's grilling this guy like he's going to put him away. I'm like, Wait a minute, that's not what.
That's not what you do.
It's like, do you know how lawyers work?
Nope.
Let me explain to you how lawyers work.
So a defense attorney does not grill people.
Anyway, right.
That's not how. No.
I don't want to go back and watch it again so that I know what you're talking about. But
No, go back. I just watched it. We watched it a couple of weeks ago.
Well,
it was fun. I remember
I
watched it and it was fun. Like that's all I remember. I totally remember it not being good, but like
it had flashes.
I
of
exactly. I have
brilliance.
memories of scenes. Like I really liked
Him on the seesaw with Jessica.
Well, the first scene when he walks outside and it's raining, and there's this kind of
love
visual
that.
effect, like
the sonar,
was pretty neat.
because they had to kind of show the audience what the hell they're talking about. Right? It's like, oh, he can hear the things. Like, no, wait, it doesn't make any sense. Like, no. It's not just that his hearing is better. It's that he can actually feel the vibrations of the things. He's got this weird kind of meta-human thing almost going on.
Yeah.
It's way more than just he can hear really well, right? It's this thing where he can feel, he's like, oh, now I can see you because the rain hits your face.
Right.
And so I can see how beautiful you are, Electra, and this is why I must make you mine. You know,
Right.
that whole thing. But then that totally explains everything else that goes on in the movie because of the noise and the dust and the cacophony that is New York and Hell's Kitchen and everything else that's going on in this loud, crazy city. He can feel it. He doesn't just see it. He feels it everywhere he goes. Like, I thought that was kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
The way they did that. But then the movie sucked. So,
It
was a good first draft.
it was a good.
And you know what? Here's the thing. I loved Colin Farrell's Bullseye.
I did too.
because he was so over the top,
Yes.
and so
I'm
hysterical.
kind of wondering
Yes.
how he's going to do Penguin.
Right.
Yeah.
But he
Colin
was
Farrell.
he was so maniacal and over the top.
Yeah.
It's like he was perfect, and Michael Clark Duncan had the
was good.
right attitude too.
Because he wasn't over the top. Like he
Right.
played it way more straight. Like you could
Correct.
totally tell that Bullseye was the over the top, ridiculous kind of comic
You can't
book
have
hero.
everybody chewing the scenery.
Exactly right.
Right.
And Michael Clark Duncan was just the straight man.
I mean,
right?
that guy.
But
I still
again,
loved his Green Mile.
Oh, yeah.
of course, they had to bring in the big black scary man to play the villain. The only black dude in the movie.
It's got to
and
be
they
the bad
gotta
guy.
play him the bad guy.
Right? Yeah.
Why not give him a do-rag?
I don't even know what that is.
Give him a Jerry Curl and a do-rag.
Yeah.
man.
Okay.
I'm I think the comic book goes off the rails on the nuke thing. Is all I'm trying to say because
Sure.
everything was
Yeah.
so personal.
Yeah. Well,
Hell's Kitchen's personal. The whole destruction of Matt Murdock's personal.
Well, yes.
Even the whole Karen Page thing was
yes.
personal.
No, it was
I
all
like the
personal.
Ben Urich storyline
Yep.
of like him fighting, and I even love the fact like that Kingpin had someone in the reporter's office that like knew what Ben Urich was even up to.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, this nuke guy comes back. He's like, it's like a Vietnam storyline too. He's like fighting for the country and all this stuff.
Sure.
He comes in, starts blowing up like majority.
But here's the thing, and I will grant you it's over the top, but he destroyed everything that was important and personal to Matt Murdock.
Oh yeah,
And Hell's Kitchen is the most important thing to Matt
Right.
Murdock.
His community.
Yeah.
It's where he lives.
So I will grant
I
you
get
that. So it was his way of coming out and saying, "All right, fuck you, Daredevil. I'm going to destroy everything you love, especially Hell's
But
Kitchen."
I'm not
also
just
trying
gonna
to-
kill you. I'm gonna kill everything you love.
Yeah.
but they resolved it by like he's basically like a super soldier, right?
Yeah.
But they resolved it by bringing in another super soldier. So like Daredevil really doesn't take care of Nuke that well. Like he basically goes off on his own tangent in the book. And Captain America comes in, and he's got an interesting storyline. It kind of splinters a little bit.
Captain America has to come in and help save the day. Okay, that doesn't bother me nearly as much.
I'm sure back then it was a little bit like awesome.
Actually, Captain America was a C-list character at that point in time.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much all the Avengers
I was
were.
just gonna say, pretty much they all were really right.
You had
Thor was A, right?
I know Iron Man
Thor
wasn't.
was a big deal.
Thor was A because of the writing of Walt Simonson and the
Right.
the Simonson.
Iron Man wasn't.
So who are
And
the
not
A's?
to mention he was based on actual Norse
Let's
mythology.
not go off on too much of a tangent.
Yeah.
So you keep saying, "Oh, C-list." So who are the A's? Thor, Hulk,
Spider-Man,
Hulk was-
obviously.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man and the X-Men were the A. That
Okay.
was
And Fantastic Four.
No.
No.
They were always a great read, but they were very much a B tier.
So Hulk was B.
Hulk would be B at that point in time
Yeah.
because Peter David was writing it at the time,
Sure.
and Todd McFarlane did some work on it at the time. So that helped to drive that.
The only reason I know any of this is because I would go into the comic book store just to look to buy my X-Men.
Yeah.
And it would be, here's the 75 X-Men titles. Here's all the weird titles that I would go look at. And then I would just look at what was on top. You know, you have some Thor, you have some
X-Men,
Hulk.
Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine. Well, yeah. And then, whatever's new, we're going to put that on top. And then it was, all the other stuff was at the bottom.
Yeah,
right?
Iron Man.
Batman, I think, was always top.
Well, yeah, but he's DC anyway.
But I just mean in the comic
world,
right?
Batman,
Batman, Spider-Man, Thor.
For a long time, Wonder Woman was a B-list character. Believe it or not, she had this huge run.
Yeah.
But like in the 70s and early 80s, they depowered her and they made her a mod girl.
Oh.
So she saw...
What?
Oh,
They took away Wonder Woman's powers?
oh God, yes.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, you start with what's his name? Who created Molden? Who created her as an S&M fantasy? Those early, you didn't know this, Dr. Marsden and his Marvel and his Wonder Woman.
I know nothing.
Isn't that what? Wait, wasn't it also the dude who invented the lie detector?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was.
Wow, nice
Oh,
pull, Joey.
yes.
Well done.
There was that movie though.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not where I remember.
I haven't watched it, so I didn't know that.
But yeah, no, Wonder Woman had early on in her
Linda
history,
Carter could be my S&M fantasy.
Absolutely.
But
early on in Wonder Woman's
Could be.
history, a lot of her adventures ended up with her being tied up and bound,
Oh,
and there was a whole thing.
I mean,
and
the last
it
sword of
was-
truth, baby.
I need a moment.
It was
Linda Carter tied up. I need a moment.
exactly.
Gal Gadot tied up. I need a minute.
But see, that was in the for you it's Gal Gadot, for us it's Linda Carter, because that was like
I'll take that
70s. and
I will
well,
even
think
say
you know what,
Linda
but I'm
Carter
saying,
today.
Linda Carter is still a handsome
Still.
woman.
Yes,
Yeah.
A handsome
She,
woman.
she was on. She was on.
She was on something.
Well, she was in Wonder Woman.
Supergirl, and
She was in Wonder Woman.
Yep.
For
Yeah,
God's
it's
sake.
1984.
Yeah.
I think wasn't she?
Anyway, to bring this one back. So I would like to, because my experience of Daredevil is the TV show.
So let's go
I
ahead.
would like to
Yeah.
discuss that. I was waiting till the last half hour to do that. So I was like, I would really like to discuss it because I really, really enjoyed it, and it was my first experience with Daredevil.
I enjoyed it too. There was one thing that annoys me about the show, it's that for a majority of the show, for the 3 seasons, Matt does not wear the Daredevil suit.
He does not wear it for a lot of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, season 1,
But
honestly,
a lot of
I'm
people
fine
would
with
say
that.
the
It
black
makes sense,
outfit
but
was best.
makes
but
perfect sense.
Season 3, maybe he could have done without the helmet, but at least wear the protective suit, right?
He had to reclaim it, and I get what they were trying to do with that, because they sent they sent out Bullseye to go wreak havoc as the Devil of Hell's Kitchen as Daredevil, so he had to reclaim it before he could put it on.
So
I understand why they did that. I also understand where you're coming from.
And I agree. I'm like, dude, after season 1, like, I want to see freaking Daredevil
Or
around.
hell,
Damn right.
Or if it's like trying to reclaim Daredevil, then at least go for an all black version of the without the helmet.
Or let them both wear the suit. Like he made a second suit or got a second suit or.
Oh wait. Daredevil starts wearing his suit again, but Bullseye keeps the suit that was tailored to him, paints it blue, cuts off the horns, Bullseye outfit.
Wow.
See,
Joey just solved it.
there you go. Or you put Matt Murdock in the Daredevil movie outfit and have him.
Oh hell no!
There you go. Super hot. Super sexy.
But no, please.
No, I don't disagree at all with what you're saying,
either.
Joey. I kind of agreed, and when it got to season 3, I'm like, here he is with his freaking, sweater wrapped around his head. You know what I mean? No, I did really, really love the story. Like, I love that story.
The story was freaking awesome.
I really like the story, and I will say because I was not like an early adopter to the Daredevil. Somebody had said, "Oh, they're doing Daredevil." I'm like, because as we've discussed, I did not read a Daredevil. I'm like, he's totally a C-level comic hero to me.
Right.
And this was because was Daredevil the first.
He was the first of the MCU movies.
He was the first.
He was.
But then it was Jessica Jones second?
Yes.
Yeah,
Jessica Jones second.
Hold on,
then,
let's see. It was Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Daredevil again, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Defenders, Punisher, blah, blah, blah.
So I heard about Daredevil was cool.
Yeah.
And then Jessica Jones, who I'd never even heard of in my life. And I think I watched Jessica Jones first.
That one was my personal favorite.
And I watched it, I'm like, oh my God, this is really good.
That first season.
It's also great when you got David Tennant.
Well,
yeah,
of
man.
course. And I'm like, well, I better go watch this Daredevil thing. This sounds really awesome.
Yeah.
So then I watched Daredevil, and I was like, oh my God, why am I not watching this? And I watched it all in like 2 days.
Yeah.
Like, I literally stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 days in a row. And my wife was like, are you coming to bed? I'm like, yes, I'm going to watch the show.
And also, Daredevil introduced...
Joe, you're yelling into the mic.
Daredevil introduced probably what could we consider the D-list hero? Night Nurse. Claire...
So she was never...
She was not the night nurse.
No, she was the night nurse.
Well, she was, but they took it away because they were potentially going to use it for the Doctor Strange movie.
Sure.
Wait, seriously?
Well, yeah.
I mean, she was the night nurse in all actions.
Right. They just didn't call her that so that they could reserve that for the MCU, for the movies, because initially it's like, these shows are going to tie in. And then Ike Perlmutter was a dick. And
I love how you come around, because we've had the earlier podcast where he didn't agree. And
I didn't.
He came around.
I honest to God thought that, I'm like, no person in business who's in the business of entertaining the masses would be so stupid as to actually hold these views. No, and espouse these views. No, he absolutely was every bit that stupid.
Yeah.
I gave him too much credit. He was a dick. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was an actual division at the time between the TV division and the movie division.
Yeah.
Now Kevin Feige.
And that's why Jeff Loeb is out of a job, because Jeff Loeb, it went Ike Perlmutter, Jeff Loeb, and Loeb kind of oversaw everything that was on Netflix. And while it was all good, so all of I loved all the Netflix shows, but they all suffered from DC-itis, where everything had to be so dark
and quiet,
right,
and careful.
Both metaphorically.
Well, okay, Luke Cage.
No, you're yelling.
Was Luke Cage dark to you?
So it was, but I mean, what you didn't have were characters in their costumes doing superhero-y things. You had amazing fight scenes in Daredevil. That first season, that hallway fight,
the best fight scenes
absolutely,
that have ever been recorded on film.
Season 3. Oh,
Daredevil was
I still think the one scene
in the hallway
that is. It has to be the best fight scene I've ever seen on TV or in a movie. It has to be. Go back and watch it again. I watched it the first time, like, I have to see that again. And I just went back and watched the entire thing again, because it's filmed as though it's a single cut. Now, I assume it's not, right?
It's actually... what they did the first scene, the first season anyways, it's a single cut, but what they did was they put strategically placed stunt doubles and stunt
and they
people.
changed, and I get that it's all movie magic, right? But but the way it looks is that it's a single. They did the same thing with, they're doing that in movies now, even in John Wick they're doing that kind of
There's
stuff.
There's an actual name for it, and it's going to bother me.
Pink
Panther
like,
used to do it.
It was like, I watched it once, and I said, I have to see that again. And I went and watched the whole thing again, and I'm like, I don't think I can stand up. Like, oh my God, that really...
The pace was so
to say that it blew my
frenetic.
mind, it doesn't do it justice. I'm like, this has changed my view of the way TV shows and movies should be filmed. Like, it was unbelievable. And they have since come out with things like John Wick, and that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head that's similar, other than other Daredevil
maybe James
seasons.
Bond?
Maybe James Bond. The new James Bond had a little bit of that in it. That's a good. That's a good pull.
Jason Bourne?
A little bit of Jason Bourne.
Jason Bourne was before that, but it wasn't. None of the stuff that you saw in Jason Bourne, though,
it apparently filmed as a continuous cut.
I do kind of have something.
But really good.
There was, like, a fight scene in the first episode of The Witcher that was actually, like, filmed as almost one
and I think
take.
that's a great point, and because I think maybe the takeaway is that this has influenced, like, that one scene really has influenced so much. It's because that was way after that. Like, Witcher was great. I loved the first episode or first season of Witcher.
Yeah,
and then his influence, like, holy shit,
I need to watch
people
it.
really
we'll do it together.
People really responded to this kind of filmmaking, and it was a Netflix show. Like, holy crap! Like, to me, that was just, it still blows my mind. Like, I still love to go back and watch that. And they paid a little bit of homage to it. Well, several times they tried to do scenes like that, and I just loved kind of a la Batman, where it's a guy that's getting the absolute crap beat out of him, and he just keeps going.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Just pure
He
adrenaline.
just getting the absolute piss beat out of him, and he just
It's just
keeps
physical.
going.
It's dirty.
Holy
it's-
crap! How
I could
does a
do this
human-
all day.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, right? Except he's not a super soldier. Like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a cop out with
Like,
Captain America because
if
he's
he
an admitted
stopped,
super
he would
soldier
fall down.
who's been through this crazy thing and whatever, and
And it
super
all goes
science.
back- it all
This
goes
is
back to
Matt
his-
Murdock is just a guy.
Right.
He's Batman. He's just a freaking guy.
Right.
Who gets the absolute piss beat out of him over and
So-
over and over and over again, and he doesn't stop. Like, it's
In the comic,
crazy,
that's
man.
the other thing. They grounded Matt Murdock in the MCU. In the comic books, he's blinded by something radioactive,
Right.
like a truck, like a toxic.
Yeah,
car.
there's a little bit of hookiness with
Yeah.
his vision because
Right.
not every blind person has that vision. Like,
Right.
I get that there's a little bit of weirdness in there,
But
but ultimately, especially in the TV show, he's just a guy. Like,
Yeah,
he's just a
except
guy.
he's got like the weird fire vision that they set up in like season one.
But
Yeah.
the
No,
thing is,
you're right.
The thing is that allows him to hear and react. But when it comes to him being a pugilist, I mean, that's what he is. He is his father's son. He will fight. You will have to kill him to keep him down. That's who, and that's all because of who his dad was. Introduced in the first season, right? They talked about that all of that in the
And
first season.
honestly, that's something else I feel like the show did really a lot better than the movie. Setting up the relationship between.
Well, the movie
Daredevil and his
they
father.
changed the whole meaning of his father in the movie.
And this is the character part that pisses me off, because in the comics, in his origin in the comics, Matt Murdock was blinded, pushing an old man out of the who's about to get run over by a truck out of the way and saving him. The truck was carrying toxic waste that got into his eye, burned out his vision, and then led to his super senses. In the movie, Matt Murdock finds out his dad is working as a mob enforcer and runs away from his dad, and when running away, he causes a forklift to run into some toxic waste that burns out his eye. So right there, you lost half of what makes Matt Murdock Matt Murdock. You lose showing his heroic side, his desire to help other people, and you show his father being in a negative light, because the whole point of his dad was he wasn't going to take the money to throw the fight. He was going to win to show his kid that he's a winner. Yep. And they fucking they killed that part of the character.
Right.
I will never sit here and say, I will tell you, I know I've been joking. I got to turn this. Let me see here. My mic's getting twisted around. There we go.
Technical difficulties.
I loved
He's
Michael
trying
Clark
to wring
Duncan's
Ike
performance.
Perlmutter's neck.
I love it, and I've never been the one to care whether or not a character is race swapped, gender swapped. Starbuck.
Yeah.
The new Starbuck is
No,
better
of
than the
course.
old Starbuck.
Wait.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, awesome.
But and I make the joke that of course you bring the only black guy in and make him the villain. It's a joke, but it's kind of wink, wink. His performance was good. Vincent D'Onofrio's is
So much subtle.
Oh my!
Hey, let's just get one of the best actors of our day and put him in this Netflix thing. Like,
And dear God,
no,
he
you
is.
can't tell me Vincent D'Onofrio is
And I
one of the
love
best
how
actors out
He's
there.
the main
He's
reason I
amazing.
watch Law and Order
He's
Criminal Intent.
amazing.
I love how his first kill is literally, at least the first one we see on the show, is literally just
Him
a
slam.
dude who embarrassed him on a date. It's kind of funny, but also really fucked up.
And,
Right,
and the
and-
thing is, that's where they played it right, because his relationship with his wife Vanessa is throughout the comics has always been one of his greatest points of pride and joy.
Right.
Vanessa is everything.
They did. You see a little bit of it
To a
into
fault.
the verse.
Except
and
in
that's
Into
the point, it's
Spider-Verse,
to a
it's
fault,
like,
right?
oh, they didn't know about his criminal actions, and now that they do, oh god, they're afraid of him.
By the way, that stunt thing, there's a name for it. It's called the Texas Switch.
Okay.
It looks like a one continuous shot, but of course it's not, right?
Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm saying it is a continuous shot. So here, I'll read the whole thing. It's because it's a little fun, fascinating thing.
Sure,
The
yeah.
Texas Switch
We're
involves an invisible switch between an actor and the stunt double while the camera's rolling. Switch takes place when the actor goes behind a wall, a car, or some object, and the stunt double emerges in their place on the other side.
So what they did was, you
the
start with
camera-
Charlie,
It's very cool.
you start with Charlie Cox, and as he's going through,
Right.
all of a sudden, stunt double A pops through here, runs through the next 2 to 3 minutes, and then falls behind the wall, and stunt double B pops out.
Exactly.
So that they're not all just like, because if you actually film that with one person in one continuous take,
of course, right.
You could do it, but like there would have to be a lot of like takes.
And so if you've seen the movie in 1917,
yes,
the premise of the movie is the entire movie is
real time,
is one shot in real time.
Oh, they actually did something kind of similar. Granted, it was a video game, God of War 2018, but still really cool.
And it's a really cool premise, right? And of course, they tell you, look, the entire movie can't be one shot, right? Obviously, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But they edit it so that it looks like one continuous shot. Yes. And there are 2 or 3 spots in the entire movie where it's obvious, like at one point the main character gets knocked out, so of course he goes black. So that's obviously an edit point,
going
right?
black is one thing. Another thing is when there's an explosion, you can hide an invisible cut there.
Right.
So actually, I was
panning
across, and there's a lot of that exists. But the point is that they did, in good faith, film a vast majority of that in a single shot, or at least guys on camera on shoulder walking around. And to me, it was just so. I wax poetic on how amazing it was.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just because it was the first time I'd really seen it, or because the fight scenes were so devastatingly brutal. Like, and they don't have to be. Nothing has to be bloody to be brutal.
I mean, the opening scene of Schindler's List.
I mean, exactly. And you know what?
Private Ryan.
You know what else? Private Ryan, a little bloody. But what I've referenced is the original. The Kevin Branagh Frankenstein movie.
Oh yeah.
Frighteningly brutal and not bloody. If you've watched some of The Sopranos, when Tony Soprano decides to get violent, especially with some of his female lovers, he gets frighteningly and brutally violent with some of those women, and there is no blood. But he is. Daredevil reminded me a lot of that. Like you can be shockingly brutal in fisticuffs, fighting each other hand to hand, and no blood is ever seen. Like it's really amazing what you can be, and that always affects me when it looks real and it feels real, and it doesn't have to be gory to be real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was. Here we go. So, and one of the more disappointing things, there was Peter Shinkoda, who was who did he play? Nobu in Daredevil. He was in season 2 when they focused on the Asian gangs, him and Madame Gao. There were actually episodes proposed that would focus on the Asian villains, and Perlmutter and Loeb said nobody wants to see that shit.
Yep.
Which, exactly.
It's a little bit of a stain.
It really is. It's one of those things. And like I said, the more I've read, you were right. I will.
The guy's a shit stain.
I wonder if that's why they gave us those episodes in the beginning of the season with the Punisher.
Oh yeah, maybe. But no, because Loeb and Perlmutter would have still been over top of that. So if they don't want, here, let's see what this.
But stuff like Captain Marvel, like why we didn't get a Black Widow movie until later.
Right.
Like after we killed the Black Widow.
Right. So after she died. Yeah.
Yeah. They were also behind some of the decisions of why some of the more popular female MCU characters did not get any merchandising because they said women don't buy action figures.
Yeah, it's like, oh, women will never be able to sell stuff. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wonder Woman did well? Oh, shit, let's get some of this stuff out of here.
Right.
So here's the quote. Jeff Loeb told the writers' room not to write for Nobu and Gao, and this was reiterated many times by many of the writers and showrunners that nobody cares about Chinese and Asian people. There were 3 previous Marvel movies, a trilogy called Blade, where Wesley Snipes kills 200 Asians each movie, and nobody gives a shit, so don't write about Nobu and Gao.
Excuse me?
And to me, that was some of the most fascinating stuff.
Excuse me?
Jeez Louise, man.
I mean, that is just... Now... I don't know how much he was actually privy to the actual writers' room, and you don't know how much of that comes down from above as well, because we all know how managers and middle managers always try and dilute the message that comes from above, no matter how shitty it is.
Cell phone game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, were these Jeff Loeb's ideals, or was he just disseminating what Ike Perlmutter from above was?
And it's like, oh, well, these kind of movies don't do good, so why would we make these movies? Well, no one's ever made those movies before. How can you say nobody, or those movies they say, oh, nobody's ever made a good kung fu movie. No kung fu movies ever made money. Nobody's ever made a good kung fu movie, so how would you know if a kung fu movie would be worth?
Well,
and then they made Shang-Chi, and guess what? It made crap tons of movie, and it was a freaking amazing movie.
It was.
Like, you can make an amazing movie about anybody. It doesn't matter.
And Joey pointed out.
Oh my god, that movie was great.
Wait, I pointed something out?
Yeah,
I freaking love that movie.
The villain.
My kids loved that movie.
The villain in Shang-Chi was brilliant because he wasn't motivated. And Joey brought this up. He had some of the.
He wasn't evil per se.
Yeah, he just wanted his wife
motivations.
back.
Right.
He was misinformed.
I mean, granted, he was still
ill-advised. He was selfish.
Granted, he was still leading a big criminal organization, but that wasn't like his big drive wasn't like more power.
He wasn't
more
Freddy,
money or something.
right? Exactly. He wasn't Freddy Krueger. You know what I mean? He wasn't trying to murder everybody to gain nothing but money. It's like he fell in love and he was desperate to get back to his love.
Yep.
It was like he was
Freddy Krueger just wanted to wake you up from
right. He
Wake
was
me
misinformed. Like
before I go.
it's the classic.
me.
Wow, you guys broke in and really did that, did you? He was the classic. He's not evil. He's just misunderstood. Was kind of that's kind of really what he was, right? And by his misunderstood actions, he was going to bring about really bad things. So they had to stop him. But who cares? What I mean? Oh my God, my kids love that movie. I love that movie.
Well, I mean, that's why you're getting like
it's probably top 5 Marvel movies for me.
Does anybody remember a little something called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
I just watched it
did
3 weeks ago.
That movie, Tony?
They did.
Also,
people-
the Karate Kid.
Wait.
No, don't, God. No, don't
Wait,
go there.
wait.
Before you go there.
No, hang on. There was an actor. What was his name? Jackie.
I'm not sure.
Jackie.
Or wait, maybe
Chan,
Bruce?
I
Are you
guess?
talking Crouching Tiger?
Maybe
Because that's Chow Yun
Bruce
Fat.
something?
Was it McFarlane?
No. I'm talking about another person who makes kung fu movies that tend to do really well.
McFarlane? Gould?
Well, here's my biggest problem. You bring an actor
Jackie
like
Gould?
Jet
Jackie
Li
Gould.
over to the U.S. and you underutilize him, put him in a movie called Lethal Weapon 4.
Well, you make him a comedy routine as opposed to what
utilizing
he's really
him
good
for
at.
his skills, right?
Yeah, or you go the other way and you put him across Delroy Lindo and Aaliyah in Romeo Must Die.
I like that movie.
I love that fucking movie.
And DMX.
Dude, that's a great movie.
That's
a great movie.
The effect.
That actually was a great example of what to do versus Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I know. I was not making fun.
I know.
love Romeo Must Die.
Yeah, Romeo Must Die is a good movie.
Damn son.
Oh yeah.
Who was
Anthony
that?
Anderson.
There you go.
There you go.
200 pounds ago, Anthony
I
Anderson.
have no idea what's happening right
That's
now.
okay.
He's
It's
got
all
a
before your
game
time.
show
It's all nice.
with his
all
mother.
nice.
High figure.
And he's got like a couple of sitcoms. Like the guy's rolling in dough now.
Oh yeah, Blackish did wonders for that man.
Yeah.
Oh, I imagine.
That's a good show too. But yeah, no, I do love Romeo Must Die. But let's circle this back around to
Daredevil.
So let's finish. What should we finish up with?
All right,
So we
so-
talked about the bad movie.
Oh.
We talked about the series quite a bit.
Here's my finale segue. Did you guys hear the Charlie Cox rumor? Charlie Cox being the Daredevil guy?
Oh yeah, in the new Marvel.
I'm hesitant to believe it only because I never want to be one of the guys who are like, I want this rumor to come
Rumors
true.
are rumors, right?
Wait.
Right.
Oh, I'm gonna be the guy that goes, here's the rumor. I'm excited. If it happens, awesome.
You're telling me he
But
could
if
be
it
in
doesn't-
the MCU?
yes.
Oh, hell yes.
So here's
he's
the thing.
gonna be
Temper your
in
expectations.
Daredevil on some level
At some point will
will
show
be
up.
in the MCU.
The rumor going on around right now is he's going to get a soft reboot,
Right.
But they're going to keep Charlie Cox, and so Charlie Cox will play a different version of Daredevil, and the rumor is that he's going to show up in the courtroom across from She-Hulk because She-Hulk is a lawyer.
Is a lawyer.
Honestly, I would kind of love it if we're like the same version as in the Marvel Netflix shows, but like they just bring all those characters over to the MCU
So
because
you're
like
going-
multiverse shenanigans.
Well, theoretically, they're in the same world anyway,
Right.
right? Theoretically.
Yeah. All the MCU stuff that was on Netflix took place in like the different boroughs
yeah.
of
Right.
New York. So Harlem was like Luke Cage, which I loved. And it was
Brooklyn
underrated.
was Jessica Jones.
Yes. Obviously, Daredevil was
Right.
Manhattan.
Hell's Kitchen.
Is all hell right.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're going to get quite the same because here's the thing: as much as I love that show, they made Matt Murdock way too dark and broody.
Yeah.
He needs to lighten up. I mean, he should be a broody character. A lot of guilt is carried on his shoulders. Mark Waid, Charles Soule, and Chip Zdarsky have had 3 phenomenal runs on the comics that, while he is still carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, he's a much lighter character. It doesn't feel like he's always carrying the weight of the world on his shoulder.
The Netflix Daredevil he's being crushed constantly.
Right.
He is suffering under the weight of his existence on every I mean, he can't move without being guilty for doing anything.
Right.
I mean, he's a constant pile of guilt upon his head, everything he does.
Oh God, I stepped on an ant. I feel so guilty.
He is the most serious character I've ever met in my entire life.
Right.
Like, he's unbelievably deep.
And he's supposed to be deep, but there's a way to.
On some level, you have to exist.
Right.
You have to live a life, right?
You have to have a reason for getting out of bed.
Right. It's like, if I had that much stuff on my shoulders, I don't know that I would ever eat a donut. Like, I could not get out of bed, right?
Take a friend out for lunch and buy a freaking panini. Do something with your life.
Let's have a no bones day. Come on,
Right.
we're gonna have a no bones day, guys. Come on.
At least in the movie, he went out to lunch with Foggy every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what'd she look like, Foggy?
Yeah, right.
Describe her
And
to
he
me,
knew,
Foggy.
but he was just helping Foggy out.
Something
Right?
I realized earlier. Why wasn't Karen in the Daredevil movie?
She was played. She was had a very, very minor. It was played by Ellen Pompeo.
Oh.
I don't know who that is.
Yes, you do. Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, well, that explains why I don't remember her.
Right, yeah.
She had a very, very small role, and Karen Page, she had a small role until Frank Miller her up in the 80s and
Turned her into a prostitute.
Right.
Give her the Frank Miller treatment.
Well, actually, he turned her into a porn star.
Oh,
and
yes.
a drug addict.
wow,
porn star. Yeah.
holy crap!
Well, that's the beginning.
Holy shit,
what the
right?
heck, man?
Wilson Fisk found out about Matt Murdock being Daredevil because Karen Page sold his name for a fix, and then it worked his way up all the way through Wilson
grief.
Fisk.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
a little dark.
That's a very dark.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah.
So in the TV show, where did they leave it? So Wilson Fisk is back in jail. Is that where he is? He didn't die,
Fisk-
right?
Avocados and
Fisk is in jail. Murdoch is meeting up with his friends again, and Bullseye is being fixed after he is paralyzed.
So is he in the back? Is he in the hospital or is he in jail?
He was in the hospital.
He's in the hospital.
But yeah, he is getting out, and he is going to fuck shit up.
And Fisk still hates
Matt
Murdock.
Yeah, but
So, and some of the more interesting runs that they did in the comics that I could see them setting up, there was actually a run where they locked up Daredevil with Kingpin in prison together.
oh no,
That's just silly. See, that goes in the silly world.
Well, no.
Because they would never actually do that.
Well, they locked up Matt Murdock. And,
Yeah, but why would they lock up Matt and Murdock with?
no. It's
Just silly.
No, I don't mean that they were cellmates. Wilson Fisk was in prison. Matt Murdock goes to prison. They have to coexist in prison
Yeah,
together.
but there's lots of prisons. They would never do that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Silly.
Small world.
Comic books are silly, Joe.
realistically,
There's
it
only
depends on the severity of the
So
crime.
now, have they talked? I thought they talked about doing a season 4. Well, not to mention, let's just, AKA Punisher. He was in Daredevil, and then got his own series, which was phenomenal.
Oh,
I thought it was amazing.
I'm currently working my way through season 2.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
I mean,
John Bernthal
is the shit, dude. He is amazing. He's just a phenomenal actor.
Yes.
And when you give a great actor great stuff, even if you give a great actor and you can say it's not great stuff, but it's still pretty good stuff. Like, he's so goddamn good at it.
Yes, he is.
He was born to be that character.
He was.
I mean, there are a lot of actors you can say, well, the guy that played Matt Murdock, he was really good, and this guy was really good, and Karen Page was really good, and the guy that played, Henry Cavill is a great Superman. John Bernthal was born to play Punisher.
Yeah,
Are
he
you
was.
Like
freaking
Robert
kidding
Downey
me?
Jr. was born to play Iron Man.
Perfect, perfectly. Like, John Bernthal was born to play Punisher.
If
If there's another Punisher ever, it's wrong. Like, because John Bernthal should be it forever.
I'm thinking, yeah.
There was that
Thomas
Punisher movie
Jane,
back in the day.
Ray Stevenson.
Fine.
Dolph
Lundgren. Yeah, fine. No. John Bernthal. He's Punisher.
He is the fucking Punisher.
He's amazing at that role.
Sylvester Stallone? Nah.
No, I would love to see more. I would love to see more Punisher with John Bernthal.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone was the Punisher, only he actually called it Cobra back in the day.
Oh, I thought he called it Demolition Man.
No, if you watch Cobra, you'll see he basically ripped off the Punisher.
I just saw, sidebar, on TikTok, so it must be real.
Here we go.
But it was actually Stallone himself, because
Yeah.
of course he has a TikTok account,
Okay.
that they're doing a Tango and Cash.
2?
Yes.
Oh, I would love Kurt
No,
Russell
he's
and him.
literally in his 70s.
I mean, he literally did human growth hormone for real.
Well, he still looks like he's 58, okay? He's in the 70s.
Well, the human body is a fascinating
But
thing
I'm
if
just
you
saying,
don't slow down.
He said it on TikTok, so it must be real,
A, look
right?
at Sam Jackson, and B, look at Paul Rudd.
Here's the thing.
Celebrities age weird.
Here's what I believe. I believe he approached the studios and said, because he also said he was done with Expendables 4.
Right.
So they filmed it. Like,
Right.
that's actually happening.
Right.
I bet he wrote the script because he wrote another, like, Rambo
He's probably
script.
written 100 scripts, right?
Exactly. Like, every character, like, hey, we pitched it. And honestly, him and Kurt Russell, I would love Kurt Russell to do his
Are
thing
you kidding
again.
me? That would be the greatest thing ever.
And Tango and Cash is, like, one of my favorite cult movies of all time.
That movie would make $500 million.
I mean, do you remember what's her name? Terry
Half
Hatcher
of
was
that
in
would
that
be
movie.
me.
Right, I'm just saying. Tango and
I'm-
Cash is my wife's favorite, unabashedly favorite movie of all time.
Really?
I love
Unabashedly.
Terry Hatcher.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what Terry Hatcher looks like these days,
Well, that's right.
but
You know my wife, right?
Yes.
You know how my wife can
Tango
be
and Cash
about.
and Johnny Dangerously are my wife's two
Nice.
favorite movies.
Michael D. Keaton.
Yeah.
My wife is, every sophomoric humor movie, my wife's like, "Oh my God, really?
What is wrong with you?
Well,
Are you 12 years old?
yeah, exactly." Do you know what my wife's favorite movie is?
I couldn't even
We get that
Austin
party.
Powers.
not even hazard a guess.
You're a guest.
Austin Powers.
No.
Fuck. Shit,
Porky's.
I know this.
Oh fuck
Oh
shit.
God, no. Animal House.
Oh, well, that's a pretty good movie.
I wasn't even
It's
close.
a great.
It's hard to
movie.
argue.
I mean, she
against
might have had
Porky.
me if she was at Stripes.
Oh God, that's
I
so
don't know.
good. Stripes is so good.
I gave my love a chicken
I mean, at least her favorite movie
which
is not
had no
Porky's.
bones.
Sorry.
Is that Uncle Andy's D&D character?
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, let's wrap it up, folks.
Wrap it up.
All right, I guess.
Too long
So-
didn't read.
Too long didn't read. We like
TLDR.
Daredevil.
Hell
you like
yeah.
Daredevil.
No, I highly recommend the series.
What, next week, are you guys going to watch Dune before next
Yes,
week or no?
we'll watch
Yeah.
it over the
So
weekend.
next week, Dune?
Next week we'll do Dune. The week after that, I think we'll delve into comics that you're more familiar with. We'll do X-Men.
Sure.
That
Yeah,
way
I've been wanted to do that one.
We can because there are only like 14 movies that we can
Well,
talk
you know,
about.
I was going to say, should we narrow it a little bit or
Let's
just say,
go-
I mean,
frick it?
there's
We'll
three.
go
Heck
with,
with it, X-Men.
let's
Just
just,
X-Men.
let's just say movies and shows.
Well, we
You got the
No,
whole
let's just
thing
talk
is-
X-Men, and then he can talk about the comics.
because
We
it's
can talk about the
comics,
movies.
it's cartoons for me and movies for me.
And
Exactly.
I can also talk about the cartoon because I've seen some episodes.
Okay, yeah, good,
Yeah.
good.
I've watched most of them. The
I watched
animation
them all.
the animation style drove me nuts even back then.
Oh, even back then, but I still
Honestly,
watch every single one
yeah.
because
Honestly,
it was
I didn't
X-Men. Are
mind
you
it.
kidding
Yeah.
me?
Like, honestly, I don't mind that animation style.
It's a sound.
If
And
that
for
doesn't tell
Jubilee
you
was
what we're
in
doing next week, I don't know what does.
Pasquale, you better break out that Disney Plus subscription so watch and some.
Sounds
Yeah.
The stories were good, but the animation was so off.
Oh, it was
And
bad.
from what I
It was bad.
understand, the show's interpretation of the Dark Phoenix thing was way better than the movies ever got.
No, the movies haven't gotten anything near right ever with those. With
Ever.
those.
Well, I'll say
Okay.
First Class was fun.
No. I'm talking.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh,
Save
you
it
mean
for the
Phoenix.
pod.
This is the pod. We can, it's
Save it for the pod.
it's called a
teasing.
preview. Teasing.
It's a teaser.
Well, this has been the pod. We have been your peas.
Anyway, so Dune next week. We'll do X-Men the week after that.
sounds
And as the holidays roll around, we might
knows? Right.
miss an episode here or there as we have
probably.
family obligations. If there's something you want us to talk about, listener, viewer, tell us.
Before we leave, let's talk about our sponsor.
talk a little bit about our sponsor. I'm still waiting to get the information with them.
So I'll say Elric's Hobbies has generously offered to sponsor the podcast.
Yes. And so what's going to happen?
ELRIKS Hobbies.
So the products are sold in very select game stores.
Such as Grognard Games.
Look right down their bottom right hand corner. But they're a family owned and run company out of Wisconsin. They make amazing bases for just about any game system out there. They've got them in varying sizes, from as small as 25 millimeter up to 75 millimeter.
At least. I mean, they do, and they'll do custom stuff. So
yeah, they start off as a Warhammer product, but they got us because Star Wars Legion. They just started releasing bases for Legion.
Yep.
And I was talking to them at Dragonfall. They're like, we just realized that the bases are separate on Crisis Protocol, so we're going to work on some of that.
CP.
I'm like,
Legion,
awesome.
The new game, the fairly new game that's been out for 2.5 years, Conquest.
Yeah. They just scored I guess they're starting to do the bases for the boxes, so they'll do the bases for the game Conquest.
And lots of generic, just round bases. So if you've got a game or you're a role player and you want some interesting, unique resin bases, pre-molded, that you can paint in any kind of way you want to paint, you can get every kind of size, shape, resin pre-cut in a bag, ready to go.
And I'm going to be doing
very reasonably priced.
I've got some. I'm finishing up some BattleTech stuff right now, but I'm going to get some Legion on the table. I'll be painting up a couple of these bases so that you can see. And the ones that I've got are supposed to be city streets. That what I'm going to do is I'm going to distress them and make them look like they're overgrown city streets, like it's old and been there forever.
And I've got a bunch at the store. I need to just give you, and you can stream with them as much as you want.
I'll
put them on everything, right?
I'll put them on
everything. I got a giant box full of them. Given by Elric's from Grognard's, and they're just going to go to you. You can use them on any stream, and you should really just base everything that you have on these bases, so you can show people what they do. So,
do they make hex bases?
I'm sure they could. They do not. There is not a
talk to them about
absolutely that. Because we're going to be playing some BattleTech tomorrow night.
Baby.
So you can do hex bases, and hexes are great for all kinds of different games.
Yeah,
I mean, BattleTech is a big one because that's what we play. But
so keep an eye out. We're gonna. I'm waiting on some things to come from the company. You're gonna see that little corner where you see the Grognard logo. Well, that's gonna alternate between Grognard and Elric's as our sponsors, and we're gonna be getting a code that will get our listeners 10% off any orders directly from Elric's.
So you can order direct from them.
You can
get
come
your
into
discount.
the store.
We get a little taste of that, and we're going to be giving Grognard is going to be starting to support the channel a little bit more in a little bit different ways as well. The You Got Me Monologuing channel. Basically, that means we're going to be giving Tony things, and we're going to make him use them. So
yay! I get free shit. I like that.
We should make Tony actually play a game.
Yeah, once in a while. He plays a game once in a while.
I do. You come out tomorrow night. I'll mud stomp
play
you
some
with
BattleTech tomorrow night, bro.
Damn skip.
I do have to.
I will take my mech and jump on top of yours.
That's called the death from above.
I want to get
okay, cool.
I want to get stack pulled.
Nice.
We can accommodate that. So ELRIKS Hobbies. You can order anything you want from there. We're not getting anything yet. As soon as we got that code, we will give it to you. But thank you very much. We love you, Elric's Hobbies, for supporting us. We're going to do our best to make you love us as much as we love your products. So with that, next week, Dune. I'm Tony.
I'm Pasquale.
I'm Joey.
Grognard Todd.
And you've had us monologuing. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys.